Chapter 2361, Godly Weapon Master. On that day, a guest came to the World Clan, and the old man of the World Clan brought him to see Lin Feng. That young man was wearing clean white clothes with complex patterns that looked like constellations. His chi made him look extraordinary. I've heard that Daimon has slaughtered saints from the fire shrine recently. You must be Daimon. The young man smiled at Lin Feng, without waiting for the old man to introduce them. He looked like a respected scholar. I didn't slaughter saints. I just managed to kill some people who had just become saints, and it wasn't easy. For you? Asked Lin Feng. He was very curious. Behind that young man were some of the saints from the World Clan who had helped him kill the remaining saints of the fire shrine. They seemed to respect the young man a lot, which made Lin Feng even more curious. Daimon, you've spent some time in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds already. You must have heard about His Holiness Ao Tian, the old man of the World Clan smiled. Lin Feng was startled. He had read many books in the Fortune Shrine, and had obviously read about His Holiness Ao Tian. This person had really reached the very, very top of cultivation. He was really a peerless saint, a king of kings, a sage of sages. But he didn't like wealth and fame, and he rarely appeared in the continent of the Nine Clouds. If he wanted to, he could easily create a shrine. And His Holiness Ao Tian had a nickname, the Godly Weapon Master. He was the only person in the whole world called that. He was the best weapon maker in the world. The Godly Weapon Master? Murmured Lin Feng, looking at the old man. Indeed, His Holiness Ao Tian, the Godly Weapon Master. The old man beamed. The young man said to Lin Feng, Master Ao Tian has 3 main disciples. They're all weapon makers and they're really good at it. They can make incredible and powerful high-level saints' weapons. This young man is Weapon Master Kong's disciple. Why? Weapon Master Kong is one of Master Ao Tian's 3 disciples. Weapon Master Kong. Lin Feng had heard that name before. Kong had an extremely advanced knowledge of empty space strength. He could make incredible saints' weapons using empty space strength. His Holiness Ao Tian, the Godly Weapon Master, was almost considered a god, and his disciples had received all his teachings. They also didn't appear often in the outside world. They all had an incredible prestige and influence, and could easily create an influential group, but the Godly Weapon Master didn't want to. He preferred focusing on weapons. He wanted to surpass himself all the time, and create even more powerful weapons. Lin Feng was surprised. What was this young man doing here? If he was here in the World Clan today, it proved one thing. The World Clan had never really disappeared. Their members had just been traveling the world with different identities, not as members of the World Clan. I've heard great things of the Godly Weapon Master. If I have the opportunity, I'd love to meet him in person, said Lin Feng, express his respect. But Hua Yi shook his head and smiled wryly. To tell you the truth, even I, as one of his disciples' disciple, I've only seen him once. Seeing him is almost impossible. The Godly Weapon Master wants to make the most powerful weapons in the world, so he is in constant need of the best materials in the world and is constantly traveling. Seeing him is not easy, said the Saint of the World Clan. Weapon Master Kong had Hua Yi come to the World Clan to bring us weapons. It's already an incredible honor. You're too polite. And I'm just doing as my master asked me, Hua Yi replied calmly. Even though he was a saint and had an extraordinary social status, he wasn't proud and arrogant at all, but rather easygoing. The Godly Weapon Master and all his disciples are very reliable, everybody knows that, said the Saint of the World Clan. That was also one of the reasons why they had so much prestige and influence, because many people ordered saints' weapons from them. It was mutually beneficial. When doing business, being reliable was essential. Therefore, even the most talented people in the world often gave the Godly Weapon Master their best materials as gifts. In return, he made weapons for them. They didn't have to worry about him being greedy or anything. Come, let's walk and chat at the same time. The group of people began a tour of the World Clan. Hua Yi said to Lin Feng, Daimon, I've heard that when you killed the saints of the fire shrine, you used some incredible deployment spells. You must be a great deployment master already. There are many extremely strong cultivators in the world, but there are very few great deployment masters, and deployment spells are necessary to make weapons. I'm sure you could make great weapons. I'm not a weapon maker. If I tried, it would have a negative impact on my cultivation, Lin Feng demurred. The only time I met my teacher's teacher, he said that on the path of cultivation, everything has the same root, and if you can return to the source, then you can do anything. Unfortunately, I'm not smart enough. I didn't manage to grasp what he meant. Nobody can compete with the godly weapon master in the world. He's a peerless cultivator and incredibly strong, sighed the Saint of the World clan. I suppose he means that weapon fabrication and cultivation are the same thing. Unfortunately, I am not talented enough. Maybe, said Hua Yi smiled. At that moment, the ground started trembling, as if an incredible strength was destroying the sky. The Saints of the World clan raised their heads, not surprised at all. The members of the Fire Shrine are faster than we thought. Fire Shrine, repeated Lin Feng. The World clan has incredible hiding abilities. How did the Fire Shrine find us? If we didn't want them to find us, we would have naturally hidden better, said the Saint, smiling meaningfully. Lin Feng was surprised. The World clan had done that on purpose. Let's go. It's perfect timing anyway. The Saint's weapons Hua Yi brought us today were precisely in prediction of the Fire Shrine's arrival. We'll try them out, said the Saint of the World clan. Fissures appeared in the sky. A group of people passed through and arrived in the foggy and misty world of mountains. The Saints of the Fire Shrine released a terrifying chi, one of them prominently. It was like he could burn the whole world within seconds with the power of his mind. The members of the Fire Shrine were shocked to see there was a Saint of the World clan in front of them, looking quite calm. He was holding an empty space picture scroll. It seemed that the empty space picture scroll contained a world, with mountains and rivers inside. The most startling thing was that there was a strong cultivator inside, trying to destroy that world. What kind of weapon is that? Asked a strong cultivator of the Fire Shrine coldly. You want to have a look? The Saint of the World clan smiled. He released world lights, which surrounded him. He immediately disappeared, as mountains and rivers appeared and turned into a world. Back! Shouted the intruders explosively. However, the Saint of the World clan was standing at the top of a mountain and asked, Where do you want to go? The area finished turning into a world, and world strength spread out quickly. The world turned into a gigantic black hole. The strong cultivators of the Fire Shrine kept fleeing, but even with their speed, they could not escape, they could only tread space. Go in, said the Saint of the World clan coldly. World lights surrounded that cultivator. He was struggling to escape, but he was already in that picture scroll. He didn't know he was inside that terrifying Saint's weapon already. Let's go, said the other members of the Fire Shrine. They all released fireballs. Since you came here, why would you want to leave? Asked the Saint of the World clan with a cold smile. The world stretched across the sky and moved towards them faster than they could run. The strong cultivators of the Fire Shrine all pulled a long face. The World clan is already so strong, and they have such terrifying Saint's weapons. How fearsome, thought that Saint. He continued running away while releasing fire strength around him. His fire was black and raged into the distance, and he finally managed to break free of the world lights. The others wanted to escape, but the Saint of the World clan wasn't going to let them go, as his hand descended from the sky. He was a saint, he was incredibly strong. The intruders couldn't do anything but let go and let themselves get absorbed by the world of the Saint's weapon. Chapter 2362, 3 great disciples. The members of the Fire Shrine had come, and once again, it was a tragedy for them. Only one person managed to escape, a terrifyingly strong high-level saint. A breach slowly appeared in the world in front of him, and the Saint of the Fire Shrine didn't dare to get close. He kept releasing fire strength. What a terrifying saint's weapon. He was staring at the world. That saint's weapon was dreadful, especially when a high-level saint used its full power. The Fire Shrine had lost once again. Their defeats were getting more and more tragic. Not many people from the Fire Shrine could actually compete with such a terrifying enemy. Besides, was he the strongest cultivator of the World Clan? The World Clan had disappeared for so long. How come they were so strong? What do you intend to do with them? demanded the saint of the fire shrine, staring at the weapon. The saints were still attacking. They didn't know they were in another world. So, this time, I just wanted to tell the fire shrine that even if you're strong and are considered extremely strong, you keep provoking the world clan. You don't respect us, you even despise us. But, can you destroy us? The saint of the world clan calmly. Your shrine lost some saints, you lost face, you can't forget about it, so now you want to destroy us. But let me tell you, if the fire shrine continues trying to destroy the world clan, they'll just bring about their own destruction. I'm going to send those people back, but I hope that in the future, you'll remember that. The saint of the world clan waved his hand and suddenly, he flung the strong cultivators of the fire shrine who were stuck in the weapons world away. They were all stunned, but as soon as they came out, they released a terrifying fire, turning the sky red. "Stop!" shouted the high-level saint sharply. He glanced at them and said, "You're shameless. Let's go back." The saints all pulled a long face. They were all incredible saints. The world clan had just humiliated and captured them. Now, they had to understand that if they continued provoking the world clan, things would get worse. "I hope we'll meet again," said the high-level saint to the saint of the world clan. He rolled up his sleeves and the fire shriners turned around and left. Lin Feng watched all that. Only a short time passed. Among the saints of the world clan who were next to him, one of them stepped forwards and smiled. "Teacher, will the fire shrine continue provoking us after what happened today?" "I don't know," said the saint, shaking his head. "However, I am convinced that unless they know how strong the world clan really is, they won't try anything risky. They already lost twice, they won't lose thrice. Indeed, they won't offend us easily, I guess. We relied on Saint's weapons this time." "Hua Yi, please tell Weapon Master Kong that we're very grateful," said the saint, smiling at Hua. He was very satisfied with that saint weapon. "We used your soul and vitality to make that weapon, that's why it's perfect for you. Besides, you also used World Dao, so the effects are perfect. Anyways, no need to mention it again," replied Hua Yi affably. "Huh, alright, thank you. Also, tell him that when he makes the sword, we'll come personally as a sign of gratitude, no need for you to come to us." "It's alright, he doesn't like agitation, he prefers tranquility. I'll tell you when we have finished," said Hua. Weapon Master Bing is a perfectionist. Only weapons can make him happy. "I remember last time, when your teacher and I went to see his friend, I waited there for 6 months before he talked to me. He was too busy making a weapon," said the high-level saint of the world clan. Everybody understood he admired Weapon Master Bing. "You know how he is. My teacher is the same." "Was my teacher annoyed?" said Hua. The saint grinned. "Indeed, your teacher was angry for a long time." "Huh, my teacher mentioned it a few days ago again in front of his friend," said Hua Yi, shaking his head. "Alright, we're good for now. I'll go back and tell my teacher everything. You should stay in the world clan for a few days, we're happy to have you around." "It's alright. I don't know what kind of schedule my teacher prepared for me, so I better go back," demurred Hua. "Alright, next time then," conceded the saint of the world clan politely. "Yes, we shall meet again soon," said Hua Yi with a wave. He smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Brother Daimon, when my teacher's colleague makes the weapon, you'll come too." "If I can, I will," Lin Feng agreed. Hua Yi rose up in the air and departed. The high-level saint watched him leave and whispered, "The godly weapon master's grand disciples are all so free and unrestrained." "Master, is Weapon Master Bing going to make weapons in front of everybody?" Lin Feng asked. That was what he had just heard. Weapon Master Bing was one of the godly weapon master's disciples, and if he made weapons in public, many people would want to attend. Weapon Master Bing is the weakest of the 3 disciples, but he's also the most attentive one. He only thinks about weapons in life. He is very focused and meticulous, a perfectionist. He prefers making swords, spears, and halberds above all, sharp weapons. Weapon Master Kong is the 2nd elder. He controls empty space energy. He's very strong. The 3rd one is Weapon Master Ling. He chose the path of spirituality. He's the most talented of the 3. Initially, the godly weapon master just wanted 2 disciples, But after having recruited Weapon Master Bing and Weapon Master Kong, he realized that Weapon Master Ling was extraordinarily talented, so he recruited him as well. At the top of the hierarchy, it's not a secret that he's going to make weapons in public. People from the lower tiers of society will never know about it, though. Lin Feng nodded. He had heard of the 3 disciples too. Weapon Master Bing was an insane weapon maker, indeed. His spears were extremely sharp and quick. He was a perfectionist and couldn't stand it if his weapons had a single flaw. Many people had to be perfectionists to reach such levels. I'm a bit surprised, mused Lin Feng. He didn't know about it because he wasn't high enough in terms of social status. Very few people knew about it in the continent of the 9 clouds. He has his own reasons. We'll see. In the world, there are many strong cultivators, and not just enemies, there are friends too, so it makes life a bit easier, said the high-level saint to Lin Feng. Indeed, Lin Feng had a forbidden body, the shrines couldn't learn about that. Even though the shrines have a very high social status in this world, it doesn't mean that they're invincible and that they can do whatever they want. They're also cautious. There are some people they don't dare offend. If you could appear in public with the people the shrines don't dare offend, then they wouldn't dare do anything to you either. I understand, Lin Feng nodded. The saint was teaching him the social codes of the highest parts of society, and the godly weapon master was probably someone the shrines all feared. Chapter 2363. Provocation. As the World Clan expected, the fire shrine calmed down. The different groups of the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds finally realized that the World Clan was truly rising again. They had fought a few times and amazed everyone. But the World Clan remained indifferent, as if their achievements were normal. 2 people left the World Clan and traveled east. In the eastern part of the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, there was a city called Qingming City. It stood alone in a boundless area, and even though their territory was gigantic, there wasn't many people there, and few people traveled there. However, many strong cultivators of the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds admired the city because there was a very famous person there. Weapon Master Bing, the godly weapon master's disciple. Weapon Master Bing was the symbol of that city. Many people were traveling to Qingming City. They were all extremely strong and extraordinary. They wanted to see Weapon Master Bing fabricate saints' weapons. When ordinary weapon makers made weapons, people weren't interested in watching, but Weapon Master Bing was the godly weapon master's disciple. He was very famous. He had made a few famous weapons: Supreme Upek, Cassiopeia, Celestial Mythia, and so on. They were all famous and terrifying cultivators wielded them. He was a truly legendary weapon maker. In the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, many high-level saints ordered weapons from him. The godly weapon master's 3 disciples were all experts in their field, at the very top. There was a dimly discernible qi in one of Qingming City's districts. There were many restaurants, tea houses, and bars here. However, it was very calm. This place was near the weapon master Bing's territory. Lin Feng was seated in a tea house with the high-level saint of the World Clan, Guzhu. Only Guzhu and Lin Feng had come from the World Clan. Lin Feng glanced around, noting everybody around looked extraordinary. Those people usually never appeared in the outside world. When seeing them, one wouldn't know who they were, but when hearing their names, one knew. For example, Guzhu, he wasn't unknown in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. He was actually very famous. Many people had heard of Mr. Guzhu Shui, but very few people had seen him. Guzhu had been famous for a long time in the continent of the 9 clouds, but because he hadn't appeared for a long time, many people didn't recognize him anymore. Even when he fought against the strong cultivators of the fire shrine, they didn't recognize him. "Brother Gu," someone called out. Lin Feng and Guzhu turned around and saw a few people. The leader of the group was wearing a robe similar to the one Hua Yi was wearing when he paid them a visit. Next to him was a sword cultivator, and Hua Yi was there too. "Brother Kong," responded Guzhu, standing up and smiling. This was Weapon Master Kong, the godly weapon master's 2nd disciple. In the distance, many people put their teacups down and stood up as a sign of respect. "No need to be so polite, everybody." I also came to watch my fellow disciple today. Make yourself at home, said Weapon Master Kong to the crowd. Being able to see Weapon Master Bing and Weapon Master Kong today is an incredible honor, spoke up someone, smiling before sitting down again. Lin Feng had the biggest smile when he saw the crowd. This weapon maker was incredible. Weapon Master Kong sat down next to Gu Zhu and smiled. I don't know what he wants to do this, why he invited people to come and watch. Weapon Master Bing must have an idea, Gu Zhu smiled. Then, he raised his head and looked at the sword cultivator next to Weapon Master Kong. He smiled and said, if I'm not mistaken, this must be Master Kasayapa's disciple. Indeed, Kasayapa's descendant. Not many people know about Brother Tianrua, he seldom appears in the outside world, confirmed Weapon Master Kong. Lin Feng was astonished. That sword cultivator was extremely young, and Weapon Master Kong called him brother. It meant that he had a social status equivalent to Gu Zhu's. Of course, he looked young, but he might be thousands of years old. Kasayapa's sword. Lin Feng suddenly remembered the ancient remains in Chi Tian Holy Town. He had found Qin Shan there back then. Master Tianrua, I've heard of a Kasayapa's sword in dark clouds, is it related to you? Asked Lin Feng. He was curious. That was my elder fellow disciple. I've never seen him, but our teacher said he was incredible, a very good sword cultivator. Unfortunately, he didn't do things properly. He left, he wanted to create his own group, and in the end, he died abroad. When Lin Feng heard that reply, he was astonished. It meant that the real Kasayapa was their teacher and was extremely old. It also meant that Weapon Master Bing knew him a long time before since he had made a sword for him. It also meant that Weapon Master Bing was very old. Your teacher, old Master Kasayapa, didn't send anyone to investigate his death? Asked Lin Feng. Why would he? Everybody can choose their own path, they just have to bear the responsibilities, replied Tianrua Jin. Lin Feng sighed. At such cultivation levels, people were different. How lively! So many strong cultivators, said someone at that moment. Lin Feng was stupefied. He slowly turned around and frowned. A few people had arrived. One of them was a young man who looked valiant and heroic. His qi was extraordinary. Zhetian. Lin Feng was astonished. Zhetian was there in Qingming City? He was there to watch Weapon Master Bing. That little boy is becoming incredibly strong really quickly. He's already a Saint Emperor. Wow, thought Lin Feng. He was satisfied though. Zhetian was progressing faster than he had. Lin Feng looked at the people next to Zhetian. They were all saints, but Lin Feng didn't know where they were from and why Zhetian was with them. Of course, little brother Zhetian, Weapon Master Bing, is the godly Weapon Master's disciple. He's a symbol in this world. The occasions to see them at work are rare, said someone next to Zhetian with a smile. Indeed, said Zhetian. He looked happy. It was great to be able to experience such things. Let's find a place to sit, said the strong cultivator next to Zhetian. They went to a table. They were about to sit when someone said aggressively, saints can come here, people who aren't saints yet should piss off. We don't have unlimited seats. Zhetian looked over at him and smiled. He had been traveling a lot these years and he had gone through a lot. He didn't get angry as easily as back in the days, especially on Weapon Master Bing's territory. I came because I admire Weapon Master Bing. I came with some masters. If there is another place for me to sit, I'll go and sit there, replied Zhetian neither haughtily nor humbly. I told you to piss off, said that person suddenly. The saint's qi was terrifying. Lin Feng frowned. Saints had to be controlled. Few people were like that. Why was he provoking Zhetian? Chapter 2364, Revelation. The person next to Zhetian grunted coldly and said, Your Excellency, you're going a bit too far, it's not your territory here. Watch your words, said that person coldly. A terrifying saint's strength oppressed Zhetian, which made him groan. He released qi to protect himself, a golden armor appearing around him. That saint released empty space strength to surround Zhetian. Zhetian was stupefied. The strength took his away very quickly. The two saints with Zhetian turned around and said, Zhetian, since they don't welcome you, you can leave. All right, said Lin Zhetian nodding. Then he left quickly. He wasn't strong enough to be there, and he knew it. Go, said that person, releasing celestial Tao, a hand descending from the sky. Jitian pulled a long face. He hadn't thought a saint would bully him like this. Jitian condensed cosmic energies and a dazzling pure light appeared in his hand and streaked across the sky, ending in an explosion. The gigantic empty space hand broke apart and bombarded Jitian. He crashed onto the ground and coughed up blood, but he was still standing steadily. He was just a celestial emperor, but he has a particular strength which makes him look like a saint emperor. Not bad at all, that young man, murmured Weapon Master Kong. Even I thought he was a saint emperor. But even if he isn't, he resisted a saint's attack. Impressive. He's definitely as strong as a saint emperor. Lin Feng nodded. He didn't intervene because he wanted to see how strong his son was, but Jitian had to be quite strong anyway. He was Lin Feng's child, after all. At that moment, the saint who had just attacked walked toward Jitian, looking at him coldly. Jitian raised his head and looked back at him in a cold way. It's Weapon Master Bing's territory here, so I can't kill you. But since you dare defend me, I will cripple your cultivation, said the man coldly. Lin Feng stood up and walked toward Jitian, glancing at the two saints who had come with Jitian. They acted as if all this had nothing to do with them, which infuriated him. Since you know that it's Weapon Master Bing's territory here, why do you provoke people who didn't do anything to you? Why do you want to cripple his cultivation? Lin Feng interjected calmly. The saint glanced at him and smiled thinly. Daimon from the World Clan, all this has nothing to do with you. Don't get involved. I don't think Weapon Master Bing likes being disturbed, said Lin Feng, ignoring him. I told you, it has nothing to do with you, repeated that guy. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly turned pitch black. A cage appeared and that saint appeared inside. Die, said Lin Feng. A destructive death celestial Tao emerged from the cage of darkness. The saint suddenly felt confused and panic-stricken. Why was Daimon so aggressive? Daimon was trying to kill him. Stop, shouted a few people coldly. A few figures flickered. Empty space chi surrounded Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng took a step forwards, a pitch-black vortex appeared, waves swept out and carried everything away. Lin Feng detonated the vortex and explosions rent the air. The saint inside the cage exploded, but his soul was allowed to survive. Arg! That saint's body had been easily destroyed, and he was furious. But Lin Feng said calmly, since you don't care about disturbing Weapon Master Bing's cultivation, I am convinced nobody minds me getting involved. Lin Feng saw some people moving towards him. Many saints surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned. Those who had come with Jitian smiled coldly. Lin Feng had a bad premonition. He heard one of the people who encircled him say, as expected, like father, like son. Us members of the Fire Shrine knew it. Lin Feng was astonished. The man then said, Lin Feng, you're great at hiding and you progressed very quickly. Lin Feng. Many people looked astonished and excited. Even if those people were saints, they had all heard about Lin Feng, because back then, the Fire Shrine was looking for him everywhere since people suspected that he was a forbidden person. But they were still stunned. Lin Feng was Daimon from the World Clan? So he was the one who had finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds back then? To ordinary people, a long time had passed since the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. For these saints, it felt like a few seconds only. Now that guy had already transcended worldliness and attained holiness? He was the one who had slaughtered saints in the Void Phoenix clan? How fearsome! Father! Jitian looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's chi changed. His face changed as he reverted back to Lin Feng. The shrines had joined hands to attack Jitian, which meant they had already guessed the truth. Lin Feng said to Jitian, Jitian, people's minds are unfathomable. In the future, be careful before trusting people. I understand, father, Jitian nodded. Then he looked at the people with whom he had come and said, you got close to me on purpose, to use me. For you. Empty space shrine, said one of them coldly. Jitian said coldly, you're from a shrine and you resort to such despicable methods? If he hadn't been my father, you would have crippled my cultivation groundlessly? Don't you have families? You're not qualified to speak with me, said one of them. Then he looked at Guju and said, The World Clan and Lin Feng have established connections. We don't mind, we are also willing to be friends with the World Clan and forget our tensions. However, you can't get involved in Lin Feng and the Fire Shrine's issues. He feared Gu Zhu, especially since Weapon Master Kong was next to Gu Zhu at that moment. Gu Zhu looked at Weapon Master Kong. Weapon Master Kong said indifferently, "You can do whatever you wish outside, but here is my fellow disciples' cultivation territory. We will not tolerate such behavior here. So please stop for now. What you do outside has nothing to do with me." The members of the shrines were stunned. Weapon Master Kong didn't give them any room to maneuver by saying that. They had to stop now and give him face. "Weapon Master Kong, the issue with Lin Feng is of utter importance. Please allow us some latitude," said a strong cultivator. Weapon Master Kong frowned and said, "You didn't understand what I just said?" That person looked angry and said, "Since it's that way, we'll stop for now. When Weapon Master Bing is done making the weapon, we'll take care of him." They all left and went to different places in town. They didn't intend to let Lin Feng off, so they were watching the exits. Both Lin Feng and Daimon were supposed to die. In the end, they were one person even better. It'd be easier to kill him. Lin Feng and Jitian walked back to Weapon Master Kong. Lin Feng nodded at Weapon Master Kong and said, "Thank you very much, Master. I don't know many people in the continent of the Nine Clouds, especially younger people. But I've heard about Lin Feng and Daimon. I never thought you were the same person, and your son is surprisingly strong. Maybe you will both become very powerful and influential in the continent of the Nine Clouds," said Weapon Master Kong. "I really don't deserve so much praise, Master." "It's just the truth," said Weapon Master Kong, shaking his head. Tian Ruojian spoke up, "Indeed, it's very possible. I'm sure you have a forbidden body now, so it's not surprising that everybody wants to kill you. You're in danger." Tian Ruojian talked straightforwardly. Lin Feng really was in danger. The shrines wanted to kill him. "I understand," Lin Feng nodded. Now that the shrines had recognized him, he was really in danger. Even with the World Clan, he had too many enemies. "You should stay here for a while," Weapon Master Kong smiled. Lin Feng was startled at the offer. He looked at Weapon Master Kong's smile and nodded. Weapon Master Kong wanted to help him. Chapter 2365. Gathering of strong cultivators. Lin Feng and Weapon Master Kong were together. The shrines couldn't attack him, but they didn't intend to let him leave alive. Everybody was extraordinary there. They knew that if Lin Feng was a forbidden person, he could pose a threat to them. He would definitely destroy some shrines. More and more people arrived and sat down calmly. They just chatted. At that moment, in the distance, a figure appeared. The members of a specific shrine all stood up and looked at that person respectfully. Weapon Master Kong slowly turned around and looked at that person. That person looked at them and smiled. Weapon Master Kong, Tian Ruojian, Gu Zhu, Wu Ming. Weapon Master Kong and the others seemed surprised. The Empty Space Shrine had made him come personally. "Wu Ming from the Empty Space Shrine," repeated many people around. They were all astonished, their hearts pounding. There were so many extremely strong people here. Weapon Master Kong, Wu Ming, and Tian Ruojian were very famous among saints. People who weren't saints never had the opportunity to see them. Wu Ming smiled at those people and nodded. He looked at Lin Feng and smiled sharply. "Back then, when all the shrines wanted to kill you, they should have done it. Trying to see if you were determined, if you were really the forbidden person, etc. is boring. Killing you directly would have been much easier. Now it's getting more and more complicated." Lin Feng was grim. This man was referring to the first time when they had surrounded the Fortune Shrine. The Fire Shrine's leader could have easily killed him back then, but he hadn't because the leader of the Fortune Shrine had said that he would kill their geniuses, too. So, at that moment, the shrines had decided to establish a strategy first. Of course, if the leader of the Fire Shrine had known that Lin Feng would become so strong so quickly, he would have done much more to deal with Lin Feng earlier. He would have put the lives of the Fire Shrine's geniuses at stake without hesitation to get rid of Lin Feng. Now, Lin Feng was a genius difficult to get rid of. He was a saint, and he was started to make connections at that level. The geniuses the fire shrine could have been sacrificed to get rid of Lin Feng were much weaker than him, so they would have been worth sacrificing. Wu Ming, you better not act blindly without thinking, said Gu Zhu. His figure flickered and he was in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng was startled. Gu Zhu was cautious. He had anticipated something could happen. If Wu Ming was as strong as Gu Zhu, he could indeed kill Lin Feng easily. Gu Zhu, you know I want to kill him, and nobody can prevent me from doing so, said Wu Ming in a cold and detached way. He took another step forward, but at that moment, sword strength suddenly surrounded him. Wu Ming looked over at Tian Ruojian, who was still seated there. Ruojian said icily, we're near Weapon Master Bing's cultivation territory. Weapon Master Bing doesn't want to be disturbed. He was disturbed a moment ago. It's not going to happen a second time. Tian Ruojian's teacher was the old Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia and Weapon Master Bing used to have excellent relations, as he had made Cassiopeia's weapons. Many years had passed and Cassiopeia had become a peerless saint. Weapon Master Bing was a high-level saint and focused on weapon fabrication, but even if it was that way, Tian Ruojian was a high-level saint and had an immense respect for him. He even called him master. When Weapon Master Bing became famous, many of the people who were present here weren't even born, including him. Weapon Master Bing had been stuck at that cultivation level for a very long time already. Wu Ming looked at Tian Ruojian and released energy that filled the air. But at the same time, his energies were being oppressed by Tian Ruojian's sword energies. The atmosphere became oppressive. Suddenly, the ground shook and a terrifying fire intent filled the air as a figure descended from the sky. Qiong Lin. Everybody looked at Qiong Lin. He was from the fire shrine. Initially, those people had come to watch Weapon Master Bing make a sword. They hadn't thought the situation would change because of Lin Feng's presence. Even if you're Cassiopeia's disciple, you can't act arrogantly in front of shrine's members, stated Qiong Lin indifferently. Even though he was releasing fire strength, his voice sounded ice-cold. Tian Ruojian didn't say anything. He put his hand on the handle of his sword. Actions were more important than words. The fire shrine continues acting that arrogantly? Someone laughed. That person appeared halfway up in the air. Qiong Lin and the others didn't seem surprised. The diviner. Lin Feng had met the diviner in the small world long ago. The diviner had given Lin Feng the impression he was enigmatic and unfathomable. He had never shown how strong he was. But if he was as strong as Gu Zhu and the others, back then, he would have probably arrived much faster when the fire shrine was chasing him. However, when Qiong Lin and the others saw him, Lin Feng noticed, from their facial expressions, that they were very cautious in his presence. Maradeva, your real body is done practicing cultivation? You're not qualified to stand before me, am I wrong? Said Qiong Lin indifferently. Lin Feng was astonished. Real body? Had the diviner practiced a cloning technique as well? Had Lin Feng always met the diviner's clones? What do you think? Asked the diviner calmly. Qiong Lin frowned and stared at him as if he were trying to see through him. Interesting. Wait until Weapon Master Bing is done making the weapon. We'll check that out, said Wu Ming indifferently. He looked at Lin Feng again, who had the impression he was going to be absorbed into an empty space. Indeed, the atmosphere was dividing. His body was being ripped apart as well. Sword strength suddenly filled the air. Come on, I was just joking, said Wu Ming, bursting into laughter. Then, he turned around and glanced at the members of the empty space shrine. He walked towards them and sat down as if nothing had happened. Lin Feng felt normal again, except he was now actually covered with cold sweat. High-level saints were terrifyingly strong. Like Gu Zhu, Wu Ming had become famous a long time before. Wu Ming's power is disintegration. He can create another space using empty space strength and make half of someone's body appear in that space while leaving the other part in the current world. That way, he rips people apart and kills them. What a terrifying power, thought Lin Feng. Wu Ming could kill low-level saints in a millisecond with the power of his mind. Saints were already powerful cultivators, but still, there were huge differences between them too. How noisy! After my fellow disciple is done making the sword, it seems like there will be battles, said Weapon Master Kong with a smile. Two high-level saints from two shrines wanted to kill Lin Feng, and some people who were on Lin Feng's side, such as Maradeva from the Fortune Shrine, were there. More people from shrines were going to arrive. It was definitely an incredible meeting. Many friends are here already, said Tian Ruojian indifferently. He smiled and said, Weapon Master Bing is going to make a sword, even the supreme animal world wanted to see it. Great. Everybody gazed into the distance when he said that. They saw two people. They were wearing dragon robes with dragon patterns on them. The dragons on the patterns were actually spitting out smoke. Their chi was extraordinary and aggressive. People from the Dragon Clan? Whispered Weapon Master Kong. Tian Ruojian smiled. Dragon Clan and, if I'm not mistaken, Rock Clan. The crowd looked higher up in the sky. There was someone wearing a golden robe, his expression sharp. Everything about that rock was sharp. A king amongst rocks, a great oriental greenfinch rock. They want my fellow disciple to make a sword for them, but he never agreed, said Weapon Master Bing indifferently. Lin Feng was amazed. The great oriental greenfinch rock wanted a sword? Weapon Master Bing is here, said Tian Ruojian at that moment, looking off into the distance. There was an white-haired old man there. His hair was messy. He looked like an ordinary old man who didn't take care of himself. It was difficult to imagine that he was Weapon Master Bing, the one who had made Kasayapa's sword, a terrifying saint's weapon. Chapter 2366. Making a sword. Tian Ruojian always called Weapon Master Bing Master. He respected him a lot. Lin Feng knew that that old man had lived for a very long time, since he had made Kasayapa's sword. Most people who were here were juniors for Weapon Master Bing. Weapon Master Bing looked ordinary, but it was the kind of ordinary which left people speechless and captivated. He looked like nature itself. Nobody had any doubts about his strength. He was an expert at making weapons, but he was also an incredible fighter, even though he rarely spent time with cultivators. And even if he wasn't a strong fighter, he could crush almost any high-level saint with his weapons. Weapon Master Bing walked over and stopped in front of the crowd. He looked at them and in particular at Weapon Master Kong. Fellow disciple, said Weapon Master Kong, nodding at Weapon Master Bing. Master, said Tian Ruojian respectfully. How's your teacher? Weapon Master Bing asked Tian Ruojian. He's fine. He couldn't come, so he told me to say hello, replied Tian Ruojian. Weapon Master Bing nodded. At a certain cultivation level, when you thought you'd reach the end, you have the impression you're starting all over again. Tian Ruojian was surprised and smiled. My teacher says cultivation never ends, and each day is a fresh new start. Right? He's a cultivation maniac, agreed Weapon Master Bing. He looked around at the crowd and said, in the last few years, a friend brought me some materials. I've been gathering other materials too. Now, I finally have everything I need to make a sword. I'm happy that you all came to watch me make it. We are the ones who are happy. It is an incredible honor to be able to watch you make weapons, said someone. Everybody nodded, agreed. They all felt incredibly honored. It was a rare opportunity. If anything happens during the process, if I make any mistake or if I don't do well enough, I hope that everybody will help me, said Weapon Master Bing. The crowd frowned. If he made a mistake or didn't do well enough. His teacher was the best weapon maker in the world, and he was incredibly good at it too. How could he say such a thing? Maybe Weapon Master Bing wants to try and make a weapon he's never made before. He's worried and feels pressured, thought the crowd. Weapon Master Bing is worried. What kind of material could his friend have brought to him? And what kind of sword does he want to make? Maybe he wants to break his record. The crowd was impatient to see what kind of weapon Weapon Master Bing would make. Everybody, please move back, I want to start, said Weapon Master Bing. Everybody stood up and withdrew to a safe distance. Weapon Master Bing was alone in the middle very quickly. Weapon Master Kong said, his chi has become even more incredible. It's the first time I have seen him like that. He has probably been getting prepared for a very long time. Master, does he want to break his record? Asked Tian Ruojian. Weapon Master Kong nodded. Yes, and it's probably related to the materials he has. Weapon Master Bing took a step forwards and a terrifying fire appeared, an incredible celestial Tao filling the air. It was very oppressive. A terrifying fireball appeared in the sky and descended rapidly. A crater which was several hundreds of meters wide appeared, celestial fires burning inside. The deep pit became dark, the fire became black, black smoke appeared. Incredible, he makes weapons alone. He's also a great deployment master, without a doubt, whispered Lin Feng. Weapon Master Bing had also cast a mighty deployment spell. He was getting ready. How strong? Father, that guy is terrifying, said Jitian. An incredible oppressive energy kept appearing in the sky. It was breathtaking. Of course, he's famous everywhere in the world, Lin Feng replied. Weapon Master Bing was standing before the fire's celestial Tao, composing himself. He had to do everything perfectly to make a perfect weapon. His fire, the materials, and his deployment spell had to be perfect. Nobody was flighty and impetuous in the crowd, they all watched calmly. He prepared the fire for 3 days straight. After that, the atmosphere went completely dark. The crowd looked at the sky and were astonished to see it was on fire. Weapon Master Bing finally started moving. He took a step forwards and stretched out his hands. In the blink of an eye, terrifying corpses appeared above the deep pit of flames. Those are saints' bodies. The crowd was astonished, so many saints' bodies. The corpses were roaring in a thundering rage, they still contained will. Those corpses are Weapon Master Bing's materials, who gave them to him? The crowd was shaking. Weapon Master Bing created many fire chains above the deep pit, catching the corpses. The bodies roared angrily. Some people's heads started aching. They had the impression they were carrying the whole world on their shoulders, their heads felt heavy. In order to use those bodies to make a sword, he needs to oppress their wills. How difficult. No wonder he's very cautious, thought Weapon Master Kong. He hadn't thought of this. Weapon Master Bing took another step forward and an object appeared in his hand. He threw it into the fire, and the fire went into a frenzy. Weapon Master Bing jumped into the fire, raising a hammer and pounding the object. Clanging sounds echoed in the air. How resistant! The crowd was shaking. He kept hammering the object unceasingly and quickly for 49 days. The crowd finally started seeing the rudiments of a sword. It looked illusionary. A sword embryon. Lin Feng was calmly watching. Weapon Master Bing's way of making weapons was different from the Gold Fire Tower's way. He looked more relaxed, but his movements were all extremely precise. At that moment, he was using his fingers to carve marks on the sword. Notches appeared on the sword. Go in, shouted Weapon Master Bing, raising his hand. Instantly, the shackles brought the corpses above the sword's embryo, and the corpses fused together with it. The saints' bodies melted completely. He's even making their wills fuse together with the sword. Drops of will fell onto the sword's embryo. The embryo was trembling with every drop. Weapon Master Bing was standing there, his soul left his body and went into the sword's embryo. He used his soul to oppress the wills. His corporeal body was just standing there motionlessly. What an incredible guy. If someone attacked his body with surprise, it would be tragic for him. Weapon Master Bing was in a trance. After melting the bodies and putting them into the sword's embryo, the embryo disappeared in the fire. It shook more and more violently. Weapon Master Bing's soul reappeared. When his soul came out, an endless number of chains surrounded the sword and lifted it up into the air. Did the sword want to leave? Where are you going? Shouted Weapon Master Bing coldly. Everything suddenly stopped, his body shook, and he grabbed the sword with his fingers. Blood splashed and penetrated into the sword. This time, he used his own blood to carve marks on the sword. At the same time, the chains were still constricting it. Stop, shouted Weapon Master Bing. He sealed something in the sword with his blood. Stars appeared in the space around, he made some hand seals with his hands, and they penetrated into the sword. The flames continued refining it. Weapon Master Bing raised his head and took a deep breath, then spat out celestial Tao strength towards the sword, penetrating into it. After a long time, the sword, which had calmed down a little, shook again. It was going insane, but at that moment, terrifying culpa lights descended from the sky. The crowd was trembling, How powerful was that celestial Culpa strength going to be? Chapter 2367. Tian Rua Jian. An explosive pitch-black strength rolled out, and a dark red color appeared, hurting people's eyes. What a powerful Culpa cloud! It contains an overwhelming strength, thought the crowd, watching the violent windstorm in the sky. They were all wary. If that tornado reached them, their souls could explode. Weapon Master Bing raised his head and looked at the sky, retreating quickly. A dark red Culpa cloud appeared, seemingly ready to explode. It descended from the sky in a flash and struck the sword violently. The sword hummed. However, the cloud didn't stop moving. It released more destructive strength and continued attacking the sword. 9 times 9, Culpa, which consumes yang energy, intoned Weapon Master Kong. The terrifying dark red Culpa strength turned into 81 parts. Terrifying deep pits appeared, bright meter-long tips appearing at the top of it. They absorbed and spat out dazzling lights, which contained an intense will. Medium-level weapon, what is he doing? Whispered Weapon Master Kong, looking astonished. Weapon Master Bing called out to the crowd, the sword contains all those saints' wills. I can't handle it alone. Everybody help me. Put your strength inside. Let's see if we can control the will. Weapon Master Bing immediately started helping. The crowd was startled, but released a terrifying chi. Celestial Tao rolled out and roared. Now that they had released energies onto that sword, they could sense its movements even better. Lin Feng released God's strength and forced it into the sword. However, when his God's strength penetrated into the sword, it seemed tiny. The will wouldn't submit to his God's strength. No wonder Weapon Master Bing couldn't control it. That sword was supposed to be terrifyingly strong. Weapon Master Bing wanted to make the best sword possible. The Supreme Yupek was made to attack souls. The Kasayapa was supposed to attack using speed strength, making people lose awareness of space and time. Now, he wanted to make a sword which contained all those saints' will, so he tried to make a pure weapon, and not a sword which contained all sorts of strength in a chaotic manner. He wanted to use the will of all those saints in the best way. Lin Feng's God's strength was made of millions of sorts of intent. It was good, but the problem was that it was too weak. If Weapon Master Bing used it, he still wouldn't be able to control the sword. At that moment, Weapon Master Bing sensed something. His strength was also in the sword, and he was paying attention to all the strengths penetrating into the sword. He noticed that a few terrifying kinds of intent could suppress the intents of others, or even destroy them, but Weapon Master Bing didn't want to see that. He also found out there was a relatively weak intent inside which had been created using myriad sorts of intent, but it was just too weak. Weapon Master Bing put his own strength around that power and looked for the owner. Lin Feng frowned. Someone was chasing him. He recalled his God's strength and sensed a strength surround and constrict him. Who? Said Lin Feng coldly. He turned around and noticed that Weapon Master Bing was looking at him. He was surprised. The one who was chasing him was Weapon Master Bing? Weapon Master Bing nodded at Lin Feng and recalled his strength, putting it back in the sword. He wanted to find someone strong enough. After a short time, he looked disappointed, as nobody was left. Those people could only oppress the strength, but that's not what he wanted. He didn't want to oppress it, he wanted to modify it. He wanted to use that strength and turn it into a terrifying and explosive strength. Unfortunately, these people didn't understand much about that. Only Weapon Master Kong could understand Weapon Master Bing. After all, they were both incredible weapon manufacturers. That's why it's only a medium-level item. He hasn't made the sword take shape, thought Weapon Master Kong. Weapon Master Bing said, All right, everybody, recall your strength. The people recalled their power. The sword started trembling again. He couldn't control it anymore. The crowd looked at Weapon Master Bing, not knowing what he was thinking. Weapon Master Bing released a terrifying strength which surrounded the sword and constricted it before dragging it towards himself. Little boy, come here. Weapon Master Bing said to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was stunned. Weapon Master Kong looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng, he thinks highly of you. It's a very good sign. It's fate. Lin Feng, not bad. Master Bing chose you, said Tian Ruojian, smiling and slapping Lin Feng's shoulder. Indeed, Everyone here was much older than Lin Feng. When they became famous, Lin Feng wasn't even born yet. Gu Zhu smiled, his eyes twinkling. It was a sign of destiny. Weapon Master Bing had chosen Lin Feng. "Hurry up and go," said Gu Zhu, smiling at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded and flashed forwards. At that moment, Wu Ming's figure flickered and he moved towards Lin Feng, shouting, "Weapon Master Bing, Lin Feng is someone my shrine wants to kill, leave him." Weapon Master Bing glanced at Wu Ming. He didn't look angry but said in a cold way, "So what? It has nothing to do with me. Little boy, come here." "All right," said Lin Feng, and he continued moving forwards. Wu Ming said, "Since you insist, don't blame me for attacking." He continued moving towards Lin Feng, who sensed a terrifying celestial Tao surround him. Weapon Master Bing frowned. A deadly sword strength suddenly filled the air. Tian Ruojian was holding a thrumming sword. "Insolent!" Tian Ruojian's figure flickered and he appeared directly in front of Lin Feng. An invisible and intangible sword moved forwards. Space started breaking apart, including the empty space strength moving towards Lin Feng. "Lin Feng must die!" shouted Wu Ming, charging forwards. Empty space strength surrounded Lin Feng. "Destroy," said Wu Ming. Lin Feng had the impression his body was going to be ripped apart. Swords glittered and penetrated into his body. However, they didn't injure him, they just broke the empty space strength around him. At the same time, Tian Ruojian threw himself at Wu Ming. He hadn't even unsheathed a real sword yet. "You want to die." Sword intent filled the air, and sword lights appeared. Tian Ruojian finally unsheathed his sword. At that moment, it was like space and time had stopped. Only a dazzling sword cut towards Wu Ming. Wu Ming released empty space strength, but he was much slower than before. He was moving in slow motion suddenly. He had the impression time had stopped. Seconds lasted forever. Time strength. Lin Feng frowned. He had seen such a sword on the battlefield of Qitian Holy Town during the War of the Ancient Days. "Piss off," shouted Wu Ming furiously. He released even more empty space strength, clear and musical breaking and snapping notes went off, but Tian Ruojian's sword continued slicing towards his third eye. Wu Ming bit his lips and blood dripped down. A terrifying empty space cage surrounded him, but the sword appeared in front of him, piercing through the empty space strength, like it had been about to teleport, but the teleportation was slowed down too. The sword finally moved forwards and drove into his chest. At that moment, Wu Ming also moved and disappeared into another empty space. However, he looked down and saw wounds on his body, and blood dripping down. Tian Ruojian is so strong. The crowd was astonished. That sword was incredible. He had nearly killed Wu Ming. "You dare act disrespectfully in front of our master," Tian Ruojian said to Wu Ming coldly. Wu Ming pulled a long face. Tian Ruojian was so strong, but he continued calling Weapon Master Bing master. Chapter 2368. Joining hands to finish the sword. Wu Ming pulled a long face. He had never fought against Tian Ruojian before. Tian Ruojian was like the legendary Cassiopeia. His Cassiopeia sword could mess with time and space. One sword sufficed to kill all enemies. Fighting against such people was too terrifying. It wasn't about winning or losing, it was about remaining alive. One small mistake and one could die against Cassiopeia sword attacks, and everything happened too fast. A moment before, if the sword hadn't reached his chest but his third eye, Wu Ming would be dead already. "Tian Ruojian, are you sure you want to protect Lin Feng?" Wu Ming asked coldly. He was a high-level saint from the empty space shrine. He wanted to kill Lin Feng, and he wasn't the only one. Many of the shrines definitely wanted to kill Lin Feng. They couldn't let him escape. He had to die. "As long as the master is here, nobody can attack him, or they'll have to fight against me first," replied Tian Ruojian sharply, firmly holding his sword. Nobody could compete with his sword attacks there, so killing Lin Feng would be extremely difficult. "Little boy, come here, ignore them," said Weapon Master Bing to Lin Feng. Tian Ruojian looked at Lin Feng and smiled. "It's an opportunity for you, go and focus. Leave the rest to me." "All right." Lin Feng nodded. "Master, Please help me with my son too. Don't worry, if they dare touch your family members, I'll slaughter them, replied Tian Ruojian. Lin Feng walked over to Weapon Master Bing. Weapon Master Bing looked at Lin Feng and turned around. After a breath or two, an illusion appeared around them, the air became very calm, and only the two of them were there. Weapon Master Bing was firmly holding the sword with chains of fire. He said, "A moment ago, everybody puts strength in the sword, but your strength is different from other people. You don't just oppress it, you also try to keep it under control and to fuse together with it. Your strength is very special. If I give you an opportunity, can you fully control the will and strength in the sword?" "Master, my strength is God's strength. I can control things better than other people. However, I'm not strong enough. The will and strength in that sword is terrifyingly powerful. I'm too weak. I can't control it with my own power," said Lin Feng. Weapon Master Bing nodded and said, "I know. This strength is much more powerful than most people's strength here. Nobody can control it entirely. After all, the strength of those saints' bodies surprised me too. I have an idea. There are many kinds of strength and will in that sword. If you could slowly take control, you might be able to divide into several sorts of strength and sort them. We could proceed systematically, make all the sorts of speed-related strengths fuse together to create extremely quick attacks, then make all the soul-related strengths fuse together to create terrifying soul attacks, and so on and so on." Incredible idea. Lin Feng was amazed. This guy was really an expert. He understood all the mechanisms of the process. He wanted to create a sword with multiple types of attacks. Of course, Weapon Master Bing had that idea because the saints' bodies contained different sorts of strengths. He was an extraordinary weapon maker. The sword would be extremely resistant to crafting because the materials were perfect. He had decided to make the sword publicly to see if anyone could help him make his idea come true, and in the end, he had chosen Lin Feng. Unfortunately, Lin Feng was a bit too weak. Weapon Master Bing wanted to break his record too. "I would like to try," said Lin Feng. Weapon Master Bing just nodded. "All right, come and try." Lin Feng slowly rose up into the air in front of the sword. A powerful strength filled the air. He released his God strength and his own world strength, wanting to have it his own way. To control that sword, he needed to make the empty space in that sword become his own world, and then he needed to create his own celestial Tao inside. His strength infiltrated the sword. Weapon Master Bing's eyes twinkled. Suddenly, his strength was expelled from the sword. He wanted to help Lin Feng oppress the strength, but Lin Feng pushed him out. He was satisfied. If Lin Feng did that, it meant he had an idea, and as long as it worked, everything was fine. Weapon Master Bing was more than experienced enough to keep things under control, just in case. Lin Feng created his own world in the sword. Wind intent. That's speed intent there, and there's light intent. Lin Feng sensed the different sorts of intent in the sword. When saints died, their will remained, and will made things seem alive. When I find different threads of intent which belong to the same category or which are similar, I can make them fuse together with God's strength. That's exactly what Weapon Master Bing wants me to do, thought Lin Feng. His God strength surrounded all the sorts of intent which were related to speed, then he modified them and made them fuse together with God intent. However, Lin Feng sensed something was resisting. The independent sorts of intent didn't just let him proceed. They didn't want to submit. "Since you're in my world, you should submit," thought Lin Feng, his intent becoming even more powerful. A massive celestial Tao strength surrounded the independent sorts of intent. He fused them together with God intent. "I can do it," he thought. Even though some sorts of intent were resisting, his God celestial Tao helped him force the different sorts of intent to submit. However, a few ones which were too powerful didn't submit. Those different sorts of intent could be compared with cultivators. If he brought cultivators who were much stronger than him into his own world, they could also break free easily. Lin Feng made a few sorts of intent fuse together and then he took his strength out of the sword. He only left intent related to speed with his God strength inside. "Master, look," he said to Weapon Master Bing. Weapon Master Bing nodded and put his strength inside the sword. He looked pleasantly surprised and said, "As expected, they fuse together. They also contain some of your own intent. Other people can't control it, but that way, when we finish making the sword, it'll have to be yours. It will be perfect for you, but not for other people." Lin Feng smiled. "That's all I could do. But even if you didn't want to give me that sword, that's still all I could have done. Don't worry. All I'm concerned about is how powerful the sword is. I don't care about who the owner is. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given the Cassiopeia's sword and the Supreme Yupek away," said Weapon Master Bing indifferently. "If you want it, you can have it." "Thank you very much, Master," said Lin Feng. He hadn't expected that, but he knew Weapon Master Bing did it wholeheartedly. He made weapons out of passion, not greed. "But there's a problem because your intent is limited, therefore I can't make a sword which is too powerful. I'll make it so that it adapts to your strength as you become stronger. We can join hands to make it adapt," said Weapon Master Bing to Lin Feng. He looked sharp. After having seen how strong Lin Feng was, he had an idea. "As you wish, Master." Lin Feng was touched. With Weapon Master Bing's help, they could make a sword which would adapt to his strength. Lin Feng was excited now and couldn't wait to use it someday. "Stay here for a time, we'll work on the sword," Weapon Master Bing said to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. In the outside world, days passed. The people outside didn't leave, though. A few days wasn't much for them. Their lives could last thousands, tens of thousands, and even more years. A few days were like an eye blink. Also, they really wanted to know why Weapon Master Bing had chosen Lin Feng. Did he want to make a sword for Lin Feng? Of course, for the members of the shrines, the most important thing remained to kill Lin Feng. Therefore, the number of people outside didn't decrease. On the contrary, it gradually increased because more and more people from shrines arrived. Chapter 2369. Weapon Master Bing's strength. Time passed. Lin Feng and Weapon Master Bing had already been working on the sword for 3 months. Lin Feng was seated cross-legged. There was a humming sword in suspension in the air above him. Lin Feng kept releasing God's strength into it. He was keeping it under control. Phew! Lin Feng took deep breaths, opened his eyes and smiled. "How do you feel?" asked Weapon Master Bing, also opening his eyes. Lin Feng nodded and said to Weapon Master Bing, "I feel like I can control some of its strength, but I can only use my own strength to control one sort of fused intent. Not bad already. When you become stronger, you'll manage to control more and more sorts of intent. The sword will become more and more powerful. Besides, you're the person that sword listens to now," Weapon Master Bing said. Lin Feng smiled. This sword was a bit like the Tianji sword. Back then, he had modified the Tianji sword, fusing together with it. Now, he had fused together with this sword and actually, it was similar to the Tianji sword because it contained different sorts of strength, 5 types. Back then, the Tianji sword contained different sorts of abstruse energies. But Lin Feng's God strength wasn't powerful enough yet, he could only control one sort of intent at a time. Of course, there were still many sorts of intent Lin Feng couldn't control inside that sword. He had to become stronger. There were 5 sorts of strength in that sword, and Lin Feng had made them fuse together with his own God strength. Weapon Master Bing had also included some of his power to enhance Lin Feng's understanding. Speed strength, heavy strength which made that each attack felt like billions of tons, soul strength to attack people's souls, illusion strength, and absorbing strength. The sword was like 5 swords, like 5 different saints' weapons. It was the result of Lin Feng and Weapon Master Bing's fruitful cooperation. Speed, power, soul, illusion, absorbing. "Master, what should we call this sword?" he asked Weapon Master Bing. He had just helped, and by a stroke of luck, he had become its master. But the one who had done most of the work was Weapon Master Bing. Supreme Yupek and Cassiopeia have already been taken. Even though this sword is not as powerful as Supreme Yupek and Cassiopeia yet, I hope it'll surpass them. "You control God's strength, let's call this sword God's sword," said Weapon Master Bing calmly. Lin Feng nodded and grabbed the sword. "God's sword, I hope you'll meet Master Bing's expectations," whispered Lin Feng. The sword contained 5 sorts of strength, and even though it was not as powerful as the great demon halberd of desolation or other saints' weapons yet, it was much more suitable for Lin Feng than the great demon halberd of desolation because it contained his own god's strength. He was the only one who could control it perfectly. "With your talent and that sword, you'll be fine," said Weapon Master Bing to Lin Feng. "All right, we're done. You can leave." "Thank you very much, Master. That sword is fit for a god. I won't tarnish your reputation," said Lin Feng, bowing before Weapon Master Bing. His figure flickered as he left that place. The crowd outside hadn't left though. When they saw Lin Feng come out, they stared at him. Besides, Weapon Master Bing had given Lin Feng a sword. When Lin Feng had gone in, he didn't have a sword. Now, he had come out, and he had a sword. The sword Weapon Master Bing had made was now his. That little boy is lucky. Weapon Master Bing gave him a sword, thought some people. The members of the shrines looked at him coldly, especially Wu Ming. That one's eyes were filled with murder, and his energies surged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng was alert and looked at them coldly. The shrines didn't intend to let him off. They wanted to kill him as soon as possible. Weapon Master Kong, Gu Zhu and Tian Ruojian hadn't left, either. At that moment, they sensed all those deadly energies move towards Lin Feng. Tian Ruojian groaned coldly and said, "Shrines, you're really reckless." "Today, Lin Feng will definitely die," said someone calmly. It was the high-level saint of the fire shrine. He flashed forwards. Lin Feng had the impression he was going to burn alive. "Nobody can touch him here," said Tian Ruojian. His figure flickered, but all around him, everybody moved, encircling Lin Feng and releasing qi. They were all terrifying cultivators. This time, they wanted to kill Lin Feng, no matter what. "Insolent," said Weapon Master Kong, coldly glancing at the crowd. The shrines had a very high social position. They considered everybody and everything beneath their notice. They were like gods in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Weapon Master Kong also had a very high position in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Usually, they never attacked one another. They wanted to kill Lin Feng because he was a forbidden person. But could they kill him here? Especially since he had received a sword from Weapon Master Bing? "The shrines are too arrogant," said someone at that moment. He was wearing a dragon robe and sounded furious. The saints were all astonished. What was going on? Why did the Dragon Clan get involved? "If anyone tries to prevent us from doing what we have to do, we'll consider them enemies," returned Wu Ming coldly. Qi drove towards Lin Feng. He really had the impression he was going to die. At that moment, energies appeared in the vault of heaven and came crashing down. A terrifying oppressive strength descended from the sky. It was celestial Tao power, and it was awesome. "Who?" snarled Wu Ming, suddenly raising his head. A terrifying empty space strength rose up in the air. Golden lights blotted out the sky. "You're really disrespectful," said a voice. A gigantic figure appeared in the sky. "Weapon Master Bing?" Wu Ming frowned in astonishment. What an ominous strength. Weapon Master Bing had turned into Celestial Tao? He was Celestial Tao itself? How incredible! "Last time, Tianru didn't kill you, but since you want to die, you will now," said Weapon Master Bing coldly. He crashed down from the sky. Wu Ming released as much empty space strength as he could, but the Celestial Tao surrounded him. He felt petrified and his body stiffened. He couldn't move anymore. That's empty space strength Celestial Tao. Weapon Master Bing was extremely strong. He was using empty space strength against Wu Ming. Wu Ming struggled, but he felt paralyzed. A Celestial Tao hand descended from the sky, and there was an explosion of energies meeting. The crowd saw Wu Ming's face disappear, turning into empty space lights. "Wu Ming!" The crowd was astonished and petrified. Was Wu Ming dead? He hadn't withstood a single attack from Weapon Master Bing. Who else wants to act arrogantly here? "I'll kill them now," said Weapon Master Bing coldly. Everybody was frozen. Weapon Master Bing had remained silent the whole time before. Nobody knew how powerful he really was. At that moment, the atmosphere was completely silent. Chapter 2370. Stealing the sword, Lin Feng raised his head. He looked at that figure and shivered. How strong, how incredible. Wu Ming was as strong as Gu Zhu, who was also extraordinarily strong, but Weapon Master Bing had defeated him in one strike. What a difference! Those two people belonged to two different worlds. Gu Zhu can easily scare the lower-level saints of the Fire Shrine, but Weapon Master Bing can easily kill people who are as strong as Wu Ming and Gu Zhu. He's also a high-level saint, and there's a huge difference between them, thought Lin Feng. He realized that the more he progressed on the path of cultivation, the bigger the difference was between people of the same level. It all depended on people's talent and their understanding of time and celestial Tao. Saints had returned to the source, they had transcended worldliness. Many people thought that he was just a weapon maker, they hadn't thought that he had such an extraordinary strength too. The air was eerily quiet, their hearts were pounding. They were furious at Weapon Master Bing, but what could they say? He was the godly Weapon Master's disciple, they couldn't defend him. In the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds, the godly Weapon Master was too powerful and influential. Why did you get involved? It has nothing to do with you, said someone indifferently. People turned to look, it was a saint of the Fire Shrine. You are not allowed to act recklessly here, it's not your territory, snarled Weapon Master Bing angrily. Since it's that way, we're off, said that person, but at that moment, there was a howl of flames. Zhetian! Lin Feng suddenly turned around and saw a gigantic fire hand shooting toward Zhetian. He couldn't protect himself and was caught instantly. Qiong Lin, said Lin Feng coldly. It was Qiong Lin, a high-level saint from the Fire Shrine. Since nobody was paying attention to him, he had decided to attack Zhetian. But Zhetian was just a celestial emperor, there was a huge level difference between them. If Qiong Lin wanted, he could kill Zhetian very, very easily. How shameless, shouted Weapon Master Kong, his expression changing drastically. The Fire Shrine has gone too far, shouted Gu Zhu. Don't worry, I won't kill him, said Qiong Lin indifferently. I'm a member of the Fire Shrine, I won't harm a little boy. The problem is Weapon Master Bing is getting involved in our things, and we don't want to be enemies with him. We're taking the little boy to Tianyan City. Lin Feng, if you want to see him, you can come to Tianyan City. Everybody, we're off, said Qiong Lin. The gigantic fire hand grabbed Zhetian, and they left as quickly as possible. Where are you doing? Shouted Weapon Master Bing furiously. Qi rolled in waves. Fireballs exploded and Qiong Lin disappeared from their field of vision. Weapon Master Bing was startled and spat, "Deployment talisman." Lin Feng watched Zhetian's figure disappear with a long face. The Fire Shrine was truly shameless. Tianyan City was the capital city of the Fire Shrine. They had their headquarters there. If he went there, he'd definitely never leave. But if he didn't go, they'd keep Zhetian there forever. Goodbye. All the members of the shrines left. In the blink of an eye, everybody was gone. The shrines had already achieved part of their goal. Lin Feng clenched his fists hard enough to make his bones pop. The shrines wanted to kill him, and now they were even lashing out at his family members. The shrines are really great. Lin Feng was furious, his eyes were filled with murder. The shrines were at the top of the continent of the Nine Clouds, and they dared do such things? Lin Feng. Gu Zhu said to Lin Feng, "Don't worry. The Fire Shrine wants you. They won't kill Zhetian. They just want to use him to threaten you." "I know," replied Lin Feng coldly. "The Fire Shrine had gone too far, though. They've gone too far. From now on, if I meet people from those shrines, I'll kill them instantly," said Lin Feng. His eyes were filled with murder. Gu Zhu was surprised, convinced Lin Feng would do just that. He was furious. The Fire Shrine has gone too far indeed. "We can't leave the matter at that," said Tian Ruojian coldly. His eyes looked as sharp as swords. He was a sword cultivator, he had learned from the old Kasaiba. He was fearless, and had been merciless against Wu Ming, nearly killing him. He didn't care. At such a cultivation level, he didn't care about much anymore. But now, the shrines had gone too far. Tianyan City is the capital city of the Fire Shrine. If I go there, they'll kill us. Even though Lin Feng was furious, he tried to keep calm. Tianyan City was the Fire Shrine's capital city. It was like Fortune City for the Fortune Shrine. The only solution there to save Jitian would be to sacrifice himself. They won't release him unless I die, muttered Lin Feng to himself. Indeed, the situation is very annoying. They have the advantage now, said Tian Ruojian, frowning. The Fortune Shrine won't just stand there and watch, said the diviner at that moment. He gazed into the distance. He looked calm and composed, but on the inside he was furious. The Fire Shrine had gone too far. The Fire Shrine has been chasing our disciple for a long time. That's already way beyond what one can conceive. Lin Feng, I'll go to the Fortune Shrine, wait for my message, said the diviner to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded, thank you for your help. We're off, said the diviner. It wasn't about Lin Feng anymore, it was between the shrines now. So many years have passed and the situation was peaceful. The outside world was tranquil and calm. There was a balance of power. The shrines forgot about the past. It's time for a good war. The imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds is going to be shaken again, said Weapon Master Bing, sighing. The imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds had been too peaceful for too long. Let's go back to the World Clan, said Gu Zhu to Lin Feng. I'll come with you, said Tian Ruojian. Gu Zhu nodded happily. Great, perfect. Tell me if you have news, said Weapon Master Kong. Lin Feng looked at those people and felt moved. Go. Suddenly, Lin Feng and the others rose up into the air. They had to go back to the World Clan to discuss things. The situation was critical, their enemies were shrines. They started flying away, but Gu Zhu and Tian Ruojian glanced at one another and stopped. Someone is hiding. Come out. A strong wind started blowing. Dazzling golden lights flashed. A figure in golden clothes appeared, staring at Lin Feng coldly. Supreme Animal World, Rock Clan, Zhonggan, said Tian Ruojian, looking at that person coldly. He looked as sharp as a sword, like he was trying to lacerate that person with his eyes. I want that sword, said Zhonggan. He was staring at Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng was stunned. The members of the Rock Clan from the Supreme Animal World had always hoped Weapon Master Bing would make a sword for them, but he had never accepted. They hadn't forgotten about it, and now they wanted to steal Lin Feng's sword. It's not suitable for you, said Lin Feng. You don't know that. Give me the sword, said Zhonggan firmly. He was determined to steal the sword. Zhonggan, don't be too reckless. Weapon Master Bing made that sword for Lin Feng. Why would he give it to you? Said Tian Ruojian coldly. So what? Weapon Master Bing doesn't know how to recognize friends. He didn't want to cooperate with us. All I can do is steal that sword, said Zhonggan coldly. He was a beast, and beasts were aggressive and straightforward, especially Zhonggan. He was a great oriental greenfinch rock, a king among rocks. Shut up, said Tian Ruojian coldly. Sword intent filled the air. At the same time, there was a shrill cry and golden lights flashed as Zhonggan turned into a great oriental greenfinch rock, and then into 3. Rock Clan's cloning technique. Tian Ruojian was grim. Zhonggan would be a terrifying opponent. Chapter 2371, Blood Great Imperial City. The Rock Clan were speed experts, especially great oriental greenfinch rocks, who were the kings of the species. They had no competitor in terms of speed. Zhonggan had imperial rock blood and he was a great oriental greenfinch rock, so he was incredible in terms of speed. On top of that, he had a special technique which only the Rock Clan had, a rock cloning technique. When using it, his chi didn't change at all, so it was impossible to recognize which one was his real body. Of course, the clone's attacks weren't as powerful as his real ones, or it would have been even more terrifying. Now there were 3 rocks, which one was the real one? It was difficult to come up with a plan knowing how fast they were. Tian Ruojian and Gu Zhu remained vigilant. Tian Ruojian, who was already holding his sword, said, Lin Feng, you stay behind. You have to be very careful. Zhonggan is extremely fast. When he reaches a certain speed, he can break free from the laws of space and time using the celestial space and time breaking rock technique. Gu Zhu also took out his world scroll. Saints' energies emerged from their saints' weapons. Gu Zhu and Tian Ruojian were extremely strong, but there were 3 Zongans facing them. They had to be extremely careful. "Give me the sword," said Zonggan's 3 bodies at the same time. All his eyes looked extremely sharp. "Ha, you little filthy bird, you shamelessly try to steal other people's weapons?" said a voice in the distance. Zonggan was stupefied. Little filthy bird? He was a great oriental greenfinch rock. Who dared talk to him that way? He gazed into the distance and saw someone wearing a dragon robe arrive. He wore an incredible helmet. He looked dignified and majestic, imposing and awe-inspiring. "Ao Songhai," shrilled Zonggan's 3 bodies at the same time. "Long-horned snake, mind your own business, will you?" "What if I don't, little filthy bird?" said Ao Songhai. He was from the dragon clan in the supreme animal world. Ao Songhai took a step forwards and looked at Lin Feng. "So you're Daimon, and initially you were Lin Feng. No wonder that Alma follows you everywhere. Initially, people said Alma was your slave. I wanted to teach you a good lesson. I didn't know it was you." Lin Feng was surprised. Ao Songhai had initially come to teach Lin Feng a good lesson and take Alma back. But now he knew Daimon was Lin Feng, and Lin Feng back in the days had asked Aoshu to bring Alma to the dragon clan. "This little filthy bird is not strong enough, but he's really quick. If he does anything fishy, we're 3, so we can destroy his 3 bodies," Ao Songhai said to Tian Ruojian and Gu Zhu. Even though he was talking about the great oriental greenfinch rock in a denigrating way, he knew perfectly well that Zonggan was extremely fast and strong. If Zonggan managed to find a way to reach Lin Feng, he'd be able to crush him. "Ao Songhai," swore Zonggan coldly. Now that Ao Songhai was there, he had no chance anymore, even with his clones. "Be careful, last descendant of the Dragon King," cawed Zonggan. Then his 3 bodies collapsed into 2, and then into 1, before he shot up into the sky and disappeared. How fast? Lin Feng was amazed. That was pure speed. With such a speed, he could attack enemies really quickly. It wasn't easy to fight against people like that. Last descendant of the Dragon King? Lin Feng was surprised. Was Ao Songhai the last descendant of a Dragon King? He did have an imperial helmet. "I wouldn't have thought the Dragon Prince would help," Gu Zhu said to Ao Songhai. As Lin Feng had guessed, Ao Songhai was a Dragon Prince. It's a slight effort. Dragons of darkness are rare, and Lin Feng brought one back to the Dragon Clan. "We are very grateful," said Ao Songhai. He looked at Lin Feng. "You helped me once, I'll help you now. Is the young man the fire shrine kidnapped your son?" "Indeed, he is my son," Lin Feng confirmed. "It'll be difficult to get him back from Tianyan City, even for the fortune shrine, unless they start a real war. You need another plan," said Ao Songhai. "What plan?" asked Lin Feng. "A tooth for a tooth. He captured your kid, you must do the same to one of his family members, someone the fire shrine cares about a lot." "Any idea who?" asked Lin Feng to Ao Songhai. "I know that he attaches great importance to someone called Qiongyu, who has a very special position in the fire shrine. If you capture him, he won't kill your son." "Qiongyu, I've never heard of him," whispered Tian Ruojian. "It's because you don't know much about shrines. I'm from the Dragon Clan, we know a lot about the shrines of the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Ao Songhai smiled. "What is his cultivation level and where is he?" asked Gu Zhu to Ao Songhai. "Dozens of years ago, he became a saint. He's much stronger now. Considering his talent, I'd say he must be a low-level saint now. His fighting abilities must be terrifying. I've heard that he was about to go to one of the 7 forbidden territories, the Godly Grave. If you hurry, you can still catch up with him," replied Ao Songhai. Gu Zhu and Tian Ruojian were startled. Qiongyu wanted to go a forbidden territory, they had to act fast. Qiongyu wants to go to the Godly Grave. Lin Feng's eyes gleamed. Ao Songhai continued, "We could do it like this. I take Lin Feng with me, we look for Qiongyu, but I can't help, because the relationship between the shrines and the Dragon Clan would deteriorate, and that would make things worse. You can send someone else with us. Of course, You can also go to Tianyan City. We can act on all sides. Lin Feng understood him. The relations between some clans of the supreme animal world and the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds were complex. Qiong Yu was a very important member of the Fire Shrine, and Ao Songhai was a prince. If he did anything to Qiong Yu, then a war would start between the Fire Shrine and the Dragon Clan. Also, Lin Feng, you must think carefully. If you do anything to Qiong Yu, it will be a point of no return, warned Ao Songhai. Point of no return? Lin Feng's eyes shone. The Fire Shrine had been trying to kill him for a while because he had a forbidden body. They had tried all they could to kill him, as if he didn't matter, but now they had kidnapped Jatian. He just wanted to slaughter them all. The shrines wanted to kill him, so he wouldn't hesitate and kill all the members of those shrines who wanted to kill him. He wanted to do that until he died, or until he stood upon their ruins. Since Qiong Yu is so important to the shrines, there might some extremely strong cultivators on his side, so I'll stay with you and Lin Feng. Gu Zhu, go back to the World Clan and talk to the Fortune Shrine. See what you can do together, said Tian Ruojian. They had to do things carefully. Failure was no option this time. All right, Gu Zhu agreed. He looked grave and solemn now. This time, their opponent was a shrine. Since it's that way, let's separate now. Tian Ruojian, Lin Feng and I, we're going to the godly grave, said Ao Songhai. They all departed hastily. The godly grave was one of the 7 famous forbidden territories. However, the godly grave was the most visited forbidden territory. It was said that that place was truly the grave of a god. It was in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds, and apparently similar to the pit of hell. The entrance to the godly grave was in Blood Great Imperial City, situated in a blood-red demon ocean. The city was chaotic, but it was the only entrance. Lin Feng and the others arrived in the sky above the blood-red demon ocean. The water surged and seemed to roar with anger as they struck the shore. Lin Feng and the others shivered. There were all sorts of places in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds. Where did this blood ocean come from? According to legends, it was made of the blood of billions of powerful cultivators, but most people didn't believe in that story. Most people believed in another story, that it was the condensed blood of some spiritual beings. Why is there lightning? Asked Lin Feng. There was blood-red lightning flashing in the vault of heaven. It made the blood roar even more fiercely. It was a terrifying place. I don't know. It's a strange world. There are many mysteries, murmured Tian Ruojian. No matter how strong people were, there were always things they didn't know, or maybe the strongest cultivators in the world were omniscient. We're here, said Ao Songhai. He gazed into the distance. Above the blood ocean was a vast and boundless city. It looked spectacular. Blood Great Imperial City. I hope we'll find Qiong Yu, and the Fire Shrine will release my son, thought Lin Feng. His eyes glittered as the 3 of them moved forwards. Chapter 2372. Dragon Clan's King Clan. Lin Feng and the others swiftly drew closer to Blood Great Imperial City. From time to time, the 3 of them saw some strong cultivators come out of that blood-red city. Their chi was terrifying, but saints were discreet. Blood Great Imperial City is a chaotic city. People who come here usually want to go to the godly grave, which means they are extremely strong. There are traces of ancient saints everywhere in this city. There are saints traces almost everywhere in the world, but especially in places like this, because people who go to forbidden territories are mostly saints, said Ao Songhai. Extremely strong cultivators of the supreme animal world regularly come here to go to the godly grave. Are there spiritual beings in the godly grave? Asked Lin Feng. He was curious. Ao Songhai was a prince of the Dragon Clan. He knew many things most people didn't. I went inside the godly grave a few thousand years ago. You will see some godly figures. However, I'm not sure about real spiritual beings. Ao Songhai smiled. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Godly figures? He would see some godly figures? The forbidden territories are extremely dangerous. That's why they're called forbidden territories. The death rates inside are extremely high. You've already been inside, how dangerous was it? The godly grave is different from other forbidden territories. It is the most visited forbidden territory. It is similar to the supreme ancient pit of hell. Most people who go to the supreme ancient pit of hell don't come out alive. They either die or turn into Demon King's puppets. Ganges time is very mysterious. It's misty, strange, and spiritual. The biggest danger in there comes from the other cultivators who go inside. They are terrifyingly strong. In the godly grave, there are God's traces, and many battlefields. They try to pull you in. But there are also opportunities in there. Last time I went there, I wasn't lucky, and I nearly died, Ao Hai related calmly. Lin Feng could imagine. Ao Hai was extremely strong, and yet had nearly died in there. So great emperors can't go in, right? Asked Lin Feng. Ao Hai smiled. Not necessarily. I've heard about a weak fellow who found some god's historical remains. 100 years later, he came out and had become terrifyingly strong. Such things happen? Lin Feng was startled, but he laughed and shook his head. Nothing was impossible in the world. If there were really spiritual beings' historical remains, it could change some people's destinies. All right, let's go in. I hope we'll find Qiongyu in time, said Ao Hai neutrally. He continued moving. They entered Blood Great Imperial City and made their way through the city. The blood qi there was extremely thick and rich. From time to time, some people looked at them, but they could see that it was better not to offend such people, so nobody dared. As expected, it's a chaotic city, thought Lin Feng, glancing around. People were fighting everywhere. He was speechless. Many people were there just to steal from other people. Of course, only strength matters in Blood Great Imperial City, replied someone. Then, some people appeared in front of Lin Feng. The leader of the group was extremely strong. Surprisingly, he was a saint. His eyes were filled with blood lights. He stared at Lin Feng and his allies. Not bad. You've returned to your true selves. You have already transcended worldliness and attained holiness. Good, we actually needed some people to go to the godly grave. Come with us. Kidnappers? Lin Feng was astonished. Those people weren't stealing treasures, they kidnapped people? Which group are you from? Are you even qualified to talk to us that way? Asked Ao Hai. Oh, use people. Trust me, the blood-based alliance is really strong, replied that person. Ao Hai's eyes glittered. Oh, you? He surprisingly came here to become a king and built the blood-based alliance. All right, we'll come with you. OU is an extraordinarily famous high-level saint. He disappeared 1,000 years ago. People in the outside world don't know much about him. I never thought he'd form a group in Blood Great Imperial City. It's probably because he wants to solve the mysteries of the godly grave. He wants to become stronger and eventually break through, Tian Ruojian told Lin Feng. Lin Feng was surprised again. OU was another monstrously strong cultivator. The leader of the group was startled that Lin Feng and the others talked about OU in such a flattering way. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, we won't disappoint you." They moved off. Lin Feng and the others followed. After a short time, they arrived in front of a blood-red palace. It was gigantic, with a flight of stairs with 99 steps in front of them. There were 2 lofty blood dragons there, looking powerful and mighty. "We're here. Come." The group of people landed on the ground. They turned around and said to Lin Feng and the others, "Let's go. Come on." However, they found out that Lin Feng and the 2 others didn't move. They just stood there calmly. "Have OU come out," said Ao Hai indifferently. The leader frowned and said, "Your Excellency, it's the blood-based alliance here. You didn't come because you wanted to, right? You came for another reason?" "You're right," said Tian Ruojian indifferently. He was completely composed. The saint suddenly released his qi. "Who are you?" asked the saint. He realized that these people were different. "Have him come out and you'll know." Ao Hai laughed. The saint frowned and said coldly, "We'll first see how strong you are then." He rose up into the air, blood-red clouds appeared in the sky and thundered loudly. They turned into a blood-red spear. "I'll give it a try," said Lin Feng indifferently. Then he jumped forwards and disappeared. Then he reappeared in front of his enemy. He was extremely fast. "Die!" shouted that guy explosively. The blood-red spear streaked across the sky towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stretched out his hands and terrifying hand imprints grabbed the spear. The saint's face paled. Lin Feng was the youngest of these three people, looked totally unflustered, but he was already dangerous. So, the two others were probably even more terrifying. "You can't compete with us. Have you come out?" said Lin Feng dismissively. The other's face stiffened. He looked at Lin Feng's hands imprints holding the blood spear speechlessly. He released more qi, which filled the air. A few saints appeared. Lin Feng was surprised. The blood-based alliance wasn't a clan, it was an alliance, and impressively they could compete with a clan. "Who wants to see me?" demanded someone at that moment. The voice came from the vault of heaven. Lin Feng and the others raised their heads and saw a figure appear above them. "You're OU?" asked Ao Songhai, standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. "Who are you?" asked OU. When he saw Ao Songhai's clothes and helmet, he frowned. He had never seen those clothes, but they looked like the clothes the members of the Dragon Clan wore. "It doesn't matter. I need you to do something," said Ao Songhai calmly. The reason why he had decided to come was to ask the Blood-Base Alliance for help finding Cheongyu. It would be much easier that way. "How audacious," said OU coldly. He released a terrifying King Chi. Moons appeared in the sky and shone down on Ao Songhai. "Insolent," said Ao Songhai, looking at the moons. He flew up and roared out, striking a moon with his hands, his dragon chants spreading out. There was a thunderous boom as the moon exploded. "Dragon Clan." OU frowned and said coldly, "You're from the King Clan of the Dragon Clan?" "Umph." Ao Songhai grunted coldly in response. Golden dragons appeared, all with 5 claws. They started ripping apart all the moons, which exploded one after another. OU pulled a long face. As expected, King Clan from the Dragon Clan, golden dragons with 5 claws. His attacks were extremely powerful. He's here with some other strong cultivators of the Fire Shrine, so it shouldn't be difficult to learn about him. Just try and find members of the Fire Shrine. It should be easy. Even though the members of the Fire Shrine were discreet, they didn't hide either, as it wasn't necessary. If someone wanted to find them, it would not be difficult. "All right, and then you'll leave?" OU asked Ao Songhai. He looked angry. Even though he wasn't as strong as Ao Songhai, he was a saint too, and he didn't want to be submissive in front of other people. "Just do what I told you. Don't worry. We're not interested in the Blood-Base Alliance." "All right, wait for my message," said OU. He turned around and left Ao Songhai, Tian Ruojian, and Lin Feng alone in the main hall. If Cheongyu is in the city, OU will definitely find him. If there are extremely strong cultivators with Cheongyu, then things will be troublesome, said Ao Songhai. After all, he couldn't get involved. He was a member of the Dragon Clan. The cultivators with Cheongyu were probably extremely strong. It would definitely be very difficult for Lin Feng and Tian Ruojian to capture Cheongyu. "All we can do is wait," murmured Lin Feng. The Blood-Base Alliance didn't disappoint them. 2 days later, OU found them. "So, any news?" asked Ao Songhai to OU. "Yes, you're looking for Cheongyu, a low-level saint, right?" "Indeed, where is he?" smiled Ao Songhai. "Cheongyu was probably still in Blood Great Imperial City." "Why are you looking for him?" asked OU. "It's none of your business," replied Ao Songhai. "I just want to warn you, if you want to cause trouble or even kill him, you have to know that Cheongyu and a group of people from the Fire Shrine are in the Celestial Assassins Alliance right now. You must have heard of the Celestial Assassins Alliance. Even if the members of the Fire Shrine and Cheongyu were alone, you wouldn't be able to harm them." Celestial Assassins Alliance. Ao Songhai was displeased. Then he looked at Lin Feng and said, "The Celestial Assassins Alliance is an influential group which has existed for a very long time in Blood Great Imperial City. They're quite strong, in the top 3 groups of the city. The group was formed after people from many places who wanted to go to the godly grave gathered. When Lin Feng heard that, he frowned. Celestial Assassins Alliance? Qiong Yu was in the Celestial Assassins Alliance? And he was with terrifying cultivators? So, I have to go to the Celestial Assassins Alliance, thought Lin Feng. Jitian was in the Fire Shrine. Even though some people were trying to solve the situation there, getting Jitian back from Tianyan City was impossible. Lin Feng had only two solutions: capturing Qiong Yu or handing himself over. He couldn't go to the Celestial Assassins Alliance as Lin Feng, but he could use another identity. I have my own world. I can easily imprison Qiong Yu. The difficult part is to kidnap him and then escape safely, thought Lin Feng. Then he looked at Ao Songhai and Tian Ruojian. Masters, I intend to change my identity and go to the Celestial Assassins Alliance to see whether I can kidnap Qiong Yu or not. It's too dangerous and difficult. And Qiong Yu's fighting abilities are terrifying. You can't do it alone, replied Ao Songhai telepathically. Lin Feng was brave, but it was a big risk. Indeed. You can't take that risk, said Tian Ruojian. Oh, you guessed that these three people were talking telepathically, so he just stood there calmly. Lin Feng looked at Ao Songhai and Tian Ruojian. He said telepathically, I have to try. There is no other option. Ao Songhai and Tian Ruojian glanced at one another. Since you want to do that, we won't stop you. I'll stay in the Blood Base Alliance. If you need anything or if they kidnap you, get in touch with me and I will do my best to save you, said Ao Songhai. But you must be extremely careful. No matter what, they must not learn who you are. I'll be outside of the Celestial Assassins Alliance waiting for you, said Tian Ruojian. They both accepted Lin Feng's decision. Even though it was very dangerous, they also thought that it was what any strong cultivator would have done. All right, good, said Lin Feng. He looked at OU and said, please give me a map of the Blood Great Imperial City and the Celestial Assassins Alliance. All right, OU nodded. He transmitted maps to Lin Feng using his godly awareness. Thank you, said Lin Feng, standing up. Tian Ruojian followed him and they left the main hall. Ao Songhai stayed there and said to OU, I want to stay here for a few days, I hope you don't mind. Lin Feng and Tian Ruojian separated on the way. Lin Feng changed his face. He still looked young but sick. His face was very pale. His hair was hanging to one side like horsehair. He arrived outside of the Celestial Assassins Alliance quickly. The Celestial Assassins Alliance was one of the most powerful groups of the city. Their buildings were much more spectacular than the Blood Base Alliance's buildings. A gigantic horizontal structure appeared in Lin Feng's field of vision. Behind Lin Feng was a gate on which was written Celestial Assassins Alliance. Lin Feng had already crossed the main gate of the Celestial Assassins Alliance. What do you want here? Asked one of the guards coldly. They were all cultivators of the Di-Chi layer. Lin Feng released absolutely no Qi, and it was impossible to know what his cultivation level was. I want to join the Celestial Assassins Alliance, said Lin Feng. If you can cross the 9 Celestial Assassins gates, you'll be able to join the Celestial Assassins Alliance, said his questioner. Lin Feng glanced at him and walked forwards. A powerful Qi surrounded him. However, Lin Feng waved his hands and those people ended up in an illusion. They were all astonished to suddenly find there was nothing around them. What a powerful illusion. He just waved his hands to create such a terrifying illusion, said one of them, pulling a long face. By the time the illusion disappeared, they turned around and Lin Feng had already crossed 5 Celestial Assassins gates. Chapter 2374. Closely following the guards of the different gates grew more powerful. However, Lin Feng easily crossed 6 gates. When he arrived at the 7th one, the guards were already half-saints. The guards were 2 old men, their eyes bloodshot. They glanced at Lin Feng coldly. They flew up and waved their hands. Instantly, terrifying blood-red hands shot towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes became 2 black holes. He looked terrifying. Come in, said Lin Feng. Suddenly, the 2 guards couldn't see anything anymore, but darkness filled with death strength surrounded them. What a powerful attack! The 2 old men pulled long faces. This challenger's illusions were extremely powerful. They attacked the illusion together, and it exploded. But when they came back to their senses, they realized that Lin Feng had already crossed the 8th gate. How strong! The two old men looked at Lin Feng and took a deep breath. Another strong cultivator is going to join the alliance. I hope they'll be lucky in the godly grave this time. I hope they'll find some historical remains, said the other one. Lin Feng was already fighting against the guard of the 9th gate. There was only one, but he was extremely strong. He was also a half-saint, but his fighting abilities were impressive. His attacks were incredible. However, it wasn't enough to deal with Lin Feng, and he quickly lost. Lin Feng could easily pass that challenge as well. Not bad. Another saint is joining our organization. What's your name? Asked the guard, smiling at Lin Feng. Mu Feng, said Lin Feng. Brother Mu Feng. You're very strong. You probably want to go to the godly grave as well. That's why you came to the Celestial Assassins Alliance, right? Asked the guard with a smile. The Celestial Assassins Alliance existed because of the godly grave. Indeed. How many strong cultivators are there this time? Asked Lin Feng. The godly grave is like the other forbidden territories. It's easy to go in, but it's difficult to come back out alive. Therefore, it's better to be prepared. This time, the Celestial Assassins Alliance has started preparing an impressive army. You won't be disappointed. The Celestial Assassins Alliance prepared great materials and has gathered some great cultivators. Can you recommend me? Asked Lin Feng. No rush. We'll get you a place to rest first. Then I'll recommend you and you'll get to know them, said the man. His figure flickered and Lin Feng followed him. He showed Lin Feng to a place where he could rest and told Lin Feng some more details, then left. Lin Feng sat down cross-legged in a courtyard. He released threads of godly awareness, which flew up and turned into a vast network, and Lin Feng could see almost everything in the Celestial Assassins Alliance. Many people raised their heads and smiled coldly. Observing a whole town with one's godly awareness wasn't polite. In the Celestial Assassins Alliance, many threads of godly awareness also flew up and looked back at Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't mind. Very quickly he noticed a courtyard. There was a group of people there seated cross-legged calmly. Their chi was terrifying. They were wearing fire robes. They were probably members of the fire shrine. Who dares act so audaciously? Whispered someone raising their head. Piss off, said someone coldly. That terrifying voice shook everybody in the city. Lin Feng opened his eyes and recalled his godly awareness. His eyes were sharp. Those people were definitely members of the fire shrine, so Qiongyu had to be in the group. Lin Feng had noticed a young man in the group, looking quite composed. He might be Qiongyu. Where the members of the fire shrine were staying, someone asked, "Who was that?" "I don't know." "A sick-looking young man. His cultivation is mysterious. I've never seen him." "He must have just joined the Celestial Assassins Alliance," replied someone. "That guy is audacious, daring to look at people with his godly awareness." Some people also laughed. They didn't mind. Lin Feng didn't move. Even if Qiongyu was there, he was surrounded by terrifyingly strong cultivators. It was impossible to capture him here. He had to wait for an opportunity. During the following days, Lin Feng inspected the city with his godly awareness every day as if he were sun-gazing. Some people were annoyed, but didn't say anything because he didn't go and inspect secret areas, and he didn't disturb people who were meditating either. Some people were annoyed, however. Why did he do that? Was he practicing cultivation? Time passed slowly. In Tianyan City, the atmosphere was lively too. Many strong cultivators were there, including strong cultivators from the Fortune Shrine and the World Clan. Of course, Lin Feng's clone was there too. Two of Lin Feng's clones were constantly in the Fortune Shrine. One of them stayed in the Fortune Shrine and did the things he did all the time: read books, spend time with Meng Qing, practice cultivation. But now that Jitian had been captured by the Fire Shrine, how could Meng Qing be happy? She was extremely worried every day. Lin Feng's clone had gone to Tianyan City. As long as he didn't use his full strength, nobody would notice it was just a clone. There was action on all sides. In a palace of Tianyan City, The diviner and Lin Feng were together. The diviner asked, "How are things there?" "I'm still in the Celestial Assassins Alliance. The date of the journey to the godly grave hasn't been planned yet." "Alright, wait for me, I'll be there soon." "If they want to go to the godly grave, find a way to prevent them from going," said the diviner. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Feng knew that the diviner who was with him was actually a clone too. Lin Feng's real body was in the Celestial Assassins Alliance, and his clone was in Tianyan City. The diviner's clone was in Tianyan City too, and he was going to the Celestial Assassins Alliance with his real body. Lin Feng didn't know what the diviner was doing the whole time with his real body, but now he was going to see Maradeva's real body. "What do we do here?" asked Lin Feng. He had inspected the Celestial Assassins Alliance with his godly awareness. He was worried that Qiongyu would go to the godly grave and he would have no opportunity to catch him. Now that the diviner was going to help him there, it was much better that way. "I informed the fire shrine. They agreed to meet tomorrow. At that moment, I'll be in Blood Great Imperial City already," said the diviner indifferently. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. One more day. The very next day, early in the morning, Lin Feng was awake as someone called him, "Brother Mu Feng, come out." When Lin Feng heard that, he went out. It was the guard of the 9th gate. He smiled, "Brother Mu Feng, let's go. We have a meeting. We'll get to know each other, and then we'll go to the godly grave." "Today?" Lin Feng was stupefied. How tense. The diviner needed half a day more to arrive. He was rushing over to Blood Great Imperial City. "Indeed. Let's go," that person smiled. He led the way as Lin Feng followed him. Even if he didn't want to go to the godly grave, he needed to prevent the others from going. After a short time, they arrived on a public field. There were dozens of people present. They were all extremely strong. When they saw Lin Feng, people were surprised. Someone laughed and said, "That's the guy who kept inspecting the city using his godly awareness. I wonder why he did that?" "Sorry, I just joined the Celestial Assassins Alliance. I'm not familiar with the rules," said Lin Feng, smiling mirthlessly. He glanced at the crowd and saw the members of the fire shrine. In the middle of their group was a young man, probably Qiongyu. Lin Feng was now sure that it was him. Lin Feng didn't say anything, he just clenched his fists. Everybody was there, so he couldn't kidnap Qiongyu. He hoped the diviner would arrive quickly, then Tian Ruojian would be able to help them, too. Chapter 2375. Arriving on time, the morning sun shone upon Tianyan City. It was very hot there. There was a gigantic palace, and in the sunlight, it looked like it was on fire. It was the Fire Shrine's palace. Many people gathered on a public field. On one side, everybody was wearing a fire robe. They all had an extraordinary qi and were extremely strong. In the middle of them, there was one cultivator much weaker than everybody else. It was Jitian. "Father," shouted Jitian when he saw Lin Feng. He didn't look good. He said to Lin Feng, telepathically, "Father, I'm all right, don't worry about me. They're well prepared, you can't do anything." Lin Feng said nothing. He glanced at the members of the fire shrine and finally looked at Qiong Lin. "You're a shrine and you stand at the very top of the continent of the 9 clouds. You dare take a young man as a hostage. How shameless." "No need to tell me that. I told you, we're not going to harm him. Come here and we'll release him," said Qiong Lin indifferently. He looked quite composed. It's not the first time the fire shrine has done something like this. "If you don't release him, the fortune shrine will lose patience," said the diviner plainly. "Lose patience? So what will you do then?" said Qiong Lin, smiling coldly. The diviner closed his eyes and didn't say anything. The atmosphere became eerily silent. Nobody said anything, both sides waited. In the Celestial Assassins Alliance, everybody was getting familiar with each other. When the Fire Shrine's members introduced themselves, the crowd paid more attention. This time, some members of the Fire Shrine are with us. Therefore, we'll choose the fire entry. We'll see if we're lucky and bump into some spiritual beings, said someone at that moment sternly. The 9 spiritual beings' graves are real battlefields. We have to help each other inside, and we should separate. All right, The crowd nodded. Everybody understands. Good, let's go, said the cultivator of the Celestial Assassins Alliance. They were ready to go to the godly grave. Wait, said Lin Feng suddenly. Everybody looked at him. Yes, what? Asked the cultivator. I have a friend who wants to come. He's extremely strong. We should wait, said Lin Feng. The strong cultivator's eyes twinkled. How strong? A high-level saint, he's at the very top of that level. His fighting abilities are incredible. He's not really a friend, he's more like an elder I have affection for, a mentor. He had to do something on his way, so he's a bit late, said Lin Feng. The leader was astonished. A high-level saint who had terrifying fighting abilities? That person was definitely worth waiting for. Since it's that way, let's wait for him, said the cultivator. Everybody agreed readily. Lin Feng was a bit relieved. However, 1 hour later, many people frowned. He's not here yet? Just wait, he'll be here soon, replied Lin Feng. You have no notion of time. Let's forget it, let's go, said that person. Right? One more isn't necessary. We don't even know if he told the truth. Let's go to the godly grave. If he can catch up, then we'll see, said someone. Let's go, said the members of the fire shrine. They didn't feel like waiting around either. Lin Feng watched the crowd leave, unable to keep them waiting longer. He followed the crowd and at the same time, his clone told the diviner the way and hoped he'd manage to catch up. There were 9 entrances to the godly grave in the city. Back in the ancient times, there were only 9 shrines, and 9 spiritual beings controlled the continent. Time had passed, some shrines had disappeared, some had risen, but there were still only 9 entrances. Each entrance led to a spiritual being. The crowd was at the fire entrance. In front of them was an ocean of blood, and above that ocean, there was a gigantic fire. That was the fire grave, and according to legends, there were the historical remains of a fire spiritual being there. Lin Feng had read as many books as possible in the Fortune Shrine, and he had read a lot about the Forbidden Territories. He knew the basics about them, but at that moment, he didn't really care about the Forbidden Territories. The diviner was almost there, but one more step and they'd be in the godly grave, though. These days, Qiong Yu had spent all his time with the strong cultivators of the fire shrine. Lin Feng hadn't had any opportunity to catch him. In the godly grave, it'd be even more dangerous. Let's go, said someone. Wait, said Lin Feng suddenly. His figure flickered and he landed in front the entrance. He had his back turned to the entrance. He said to the crowd, "Everybody please wait. He'll be here soon." Many people frowned and lost patience. We've already waited for a long time, but he has not come. We can't waste time because of one person. Move, said someone indifferently. Move, Feng, don't be annoying, said the cultivator of the Celestial Assassins Alliance. The time needed to burn a joss stick will be enough, said Lin Feng to the crowd. Move, shouted someone explosively. If he comes and we're inside, you can tell him where we are. Insolent, said someone releasing energy which oppressed Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "Everybody, this is serious. I must prevent you from going in, otherwise, the consequences will be dramatic." The crowd looked furious. Some people made steps forwards and someone said coldly, "You're trying to scare us? What is serious? What consequences?" "Please stop, everybody," said someone at that moment. A figure appeared in the sky, his voice reverberating. The crowd frowned as the man's voice resonated in their souls. "Who are you, Your Excellency?" asked someone. "It's about the shrines." "Everybody stop moving," said the voice. The crowd was startled. The shrines? About the shrines. The members of the fire shrine looked angry. They stepped forwards and said, "Ignore him, everybody. I'd be curious to see which shrine he's from, anyway." "Insolent. Are all the members of the fire shrine that arrogant?" asked the voice aggressively. The members of the fire shrine gazed into the distance and said coldly, "You're insolent. If you dare stay, you'll see who's insolent," said the voice. The members of the fire shrine pulled a long face. That person dared threaten them? "I'd like to see who dares act that insolently as well," said some people. They had decided to wait. At that moment, someone appeared in the distance. He looked at the crowd and said, "It's not me. I'm just someone who wants to go to the godly grave." It was Tian Ruojian. Many people knew his name, but not what he looked like. The continent of the 9 clouds was too big. The crowd didn't enter the godly grave. They wanted to see the person who dared threaten the fire shrine. In the distance, clouds appeared and a strong wind started blowing. A terrifying aura filled the air. Very quickly, the crowd saw a figure, their robe fluttering in the wind. He looked furious. "He's here." Lin Feng frowned. That was Maradeva. The crowd frowned. That person looked familiar, but they didn't know where they had seen him. "It's Maradeva," said someone suddenly. The members of the fire shrine frowned when they saw it was Maradeva. He hadn't appeared for a very long time. He always appeared as the diviner. Most people had forgotten about Maradeva. "Qiongyu, go to the godly grave first," said the members of the fire shrine to Qiongyu and the others. They understood something unusual was going on. What did Maradeva want to do? At that moment, a terrifying sword strength arose with a hum. The crowd shook and looked at Tian Ruojian. They hadn't thought this guy was so strong, and they were together. "Bastard!" shouted Maradeva explosively. The atmosphere became illusionary. "Maradeva, what is this supposed to mean?" swore a strong cultivator of the fire shrine. "I've told you, the fortune shrine has lost patience," said Maradeva coldly. A gigantic hand descended from the sky. At the same time, Tian Ruojian released terrifying sword energies. Lin Feng took out a dazzling sword. It was time to capture Qiongyu, finally. Chapter 2376, Chasing Maradeva, formerly the Fiend, now Fortune Shrine's diviner, is here, blurted out the crowd when they saw this. The Fortune Shrine and the Fire Shrine were directly confronting one another. Mu Feng had been wasting time for Maradeva to arrive. "You dare act that arrogantly here," shouted someone loudly. Maradeva and the strong cultivators of the Fire Shrine collided. Explosions rent in the air. A strong cultivator of the Fire Shrine groaned and released even more energies, his eyes filled with killer intent. No wonder Maradeva wasn't worried about infuriating the Fire Shrine. The Fortune and the Fire Shrines were not friendly at all. "I've told you, the Fortune Shrine has lost patience," said Maradeva coldly. He was staring at Qiongyu. Qionyu's face stiffened. "Qiongyu, go into the godly grave." "You're their target," said a strong cultivator. Qiongyu and 2 others nodded and flew towards the fire entrance. A peerless sword energy surrounded Qiongyu and constricted him. It felt like that sword was coming from heaven. Qiongyu had the impression he was hallucinating. No matter what, he couldn't escape its killing power. He wanted to move away, but he realized he was extremely slow. Kasayapa sword technique. "He's Tian Ruojian." Qiongyu and the 2 other people's faces changed drastically. They had never seen Tian Ruojian, but they could guess who he was considering his attack. Many people from the shrines had had the opportunity to sense Kasayapa's sword intent. It was impossible to forget. "Explode!" shouted one of them loudly. The atmosphere turned into a fireball. The deceleration energy broke apart. Another man flashed forwards, lights emerging from his fingers and moving towards Tian Ruojian. "Go!" shouted the 2 cultivators in front of Qiongyu. The other strong cultivators confronted Maradeva. Since Maradeva's target was Qiongyu, they had to go into the godly grave. Inside were other strong cultivators from the Fire Shrine. Qiongyu felt relaxed with the help of those 2. He flashed towards the fire entrance, but found Lin Feng standing there. His sword emitted whistling sounds. A terrifying energy filled the air. He didn't move, but the atmosphere around him stiffened. That sword attack was dangerous. Qiongyu stopped and released an explosive fire. He shouted furiously, "Die!" A fire spear appeared in Qionyu's hand. It rotated rapidly, releasing a black fire which formed a vortex. Lin Feng was still standing there as if the outside world had nothing to do with him. He released God's strength and condensed it into his sword. A wave of heat rolled towards Lin Feng. His skin suddenly felt extremely sore, as if he were being roasted. He waved his hands and finally moved invisibly fast. However, he still didn't move his sword. He flew towards the spear. Finally, Lin Feng's sword moved. It was extremely fast as light. Qiongyu couldn't even see it clearly. How fast? He couldn't believe it. Piss off, he shouted. His spear continued moving forwards, a fire trail appearing behind it, and flames howled around it. But the sword was already in front of him. He moved back quickly and terrifying lights emerged from his third eye. Lin Feng's sword cut through the lights, and the sword intent disappeared. He was surprised. Qiongyu was already far away. Qiongyu released more light beams, but then he realized they were shattering. They're broken. What a terrifying attack. Qionyu's face stiffened. He noticed that Lin Feng was also surprised. He had been too careless a moment before, deciding to throw himself at Lin Feng just now. He hadn't thought Lin Feng's speed was so terrifying. "Qiongyu, go into the godly grave," shouted someone, landing in front of Qiongyu. They had to get Qiongyu into the godly grave to protect him. "All right, get ready to disperse," said Qiongyu. However, Lin Feng looked at him coldly. Lights twinkled under his feet as he cast a deployment spell. "Go," shouted the fire saint. He struck the ground with his fingers, and it shook violently. A terrifying fire struck the deployment marks, the ground shattered. Qiongyu moved towards the fire entrance as fast as possible. Maradeva and Tian Ruojian were terrifyingly strong, very dangerous, and if they had the opportunity, they'd be able to capture Qiongyu easily. Even if Qiongyu was strong, he couldn't compete with them. Lin Feng was grim. The enemy had managed to stop his deployment spell. He turned around and looked after Qiongyu. However, a fire saint threw himself at him, a scorching hot energy penetrating into his body. As he ran towards Lin Feng, his fire was becoming more and more powerful. Lin Feng's body stiffened. An oppressive black fire surrounded him. The attack was really strong. No, Lin Feng looked at Qiongyu, who was getting closer and closer to the entrance. He was about to succeed. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. A death cage appeared and his sword moved towards the man quickly. This time, he didn't use the fast strength, he used the heavy strength. Even though the opponent was in his illusion, his attacks were terrifying and made Lin Feng tremble. What a powerful attack! Lin Feng grit his teeth. His god's strength surged out, and his sword penetrated into the cage of darkness. It was a terrifying and aggressive attack, a heavy blow. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng. That attack destroyed his opponent's saint's weapon and crashed onto his body and blew him apart. However, Lin Feng didn't look happy. He turned around again and saw that Qiongyu was already in the godly grave. Lin Feng pulled a long face. He glanced at Maradeva and Tian Ruojian and said, "I'm going in." "It's too dangerous inside," shouted Maradeva, as Lin Feng chased after Qiongyu. It was extremely dangerous, but Lin Feng didn't care. Maradeva and Tian Ruojian could deal with the members of the fire shrine who were still outside. That way, Lin Feng would be able to deal with Qiongyu without them. It was good enough. Lin Feng jumped into the entrance to the godly grave. He still had some flames on his body. There were some blisters which burst and bled. His previous opponent had been extremely strong. "I'll definitely catch Qiongyu," thought Lin Feng. His eyes gleamed. He had to capture Qiongyu to get Jitian back. This was an opportunity, and there weren't other people from shrines present, for once. Lin Feng jumped into the godly grave. The crowd around was astonished. How insane! He was chasing Qiongyu into the godly grave. Chapter 2377. Tear into each other. When the crowd saw Lin Feng jump into the godly grave, they also got ready to go enter, but someone shouted coldly, "Stop!" Maradeva jumped and landed in front of the godly grave. He glanced at the crowd and said, "Everybody, before the issue is solved, stay here. If you disobey and try to enter the godly grave, don't blame me." When the crowd heard him, they frowned. How arrogant! However, what could they do? He was famous and extremely strong. All they could do was shut up. Going to the godly grave wasn't exactly urgent. The strong cultivators of the fire shrine looked at Maradeva and said coldly, "You can't stop us with just your arrogance, Maradeva. Never mind. At the very least, none of you will enter the godly grave," said Maradeva mercilessly. Tian Ruojian landed next to him, and they blocked the entrance. "You think too highly of yourself," said a low-level saint to Maradeva coldly. Maradeva glanced at him coldly. He stretched out his hand, a light beam emerged and surrounded that man. The lights constricted his soul. He could die anytime. "He's aiming at you," shouted someone furiously next to him. That person's face stiffened and he retreated. "It's too late for him to escape," said Maradeva coldly. He closed his eyes, looking solemn and aloof. He said coldly, "Great destiny technique, heavenly laceration, die." Celestial Tao condensed into the light beam. That cultivator's face paled. His soul started shaking violently as a light beam descended from the sky. The low-level saint from the fire shrine trembled, and then he closed his eyes and collapsed softly. He was dead. "You're lucky I want Xiongyu alive, otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do anything," said Maradeva, reopening his eyes. He glanced at the strong cultivators of the fire shrine. They remained silent and could only grimace. The Fortune Shrine had some terrifying destiny celestial Tao techniques. The heavenly laceration of the Great Destiny technique was nigh unstoppable. It was difficult to escape from the diviner. "You dare kill people from the fire shrine, Maradeva? You want to start a war between the shrines?" the high-level fire saint demanded of Maradeva. "We've been enduring your provocations for such a long time. Since you don't fear a war, why would the Fortune Shrine?" said Maradeva. A terrifying celestial Tao condensed in the sky and attacked another low-level saint. That person's face turned deathly pale. The Great Destiny technique's heavenly laceration was terrifying. The opponent had to have a powerful celestial Tao technique to resist it. "Maradeva, you bastard!" shouted a strong cultivator of the fire shrine. He then threw himself at Maradeva. Tian Ruojian jumped forwards and a terrifying sword light beam appeared, like time had stopped. The strong cultivator withdrew and condensed a black fire in his hand, throwing it at the sword. "Die!" Maradeva's eyes were filled with murder. He used his heavenly laceration again. The crowd was shaking. Another low-level saint died. Everybody remained quiet. Maradeva's strength was terrifying. Saints were dying. The strong cultivators of the fire shrine were furious. Maradeva was killing low-level saints like insects. What would happen if he used it against high-level saints, though? Nobody knew because they hadn't sensed the real power of his heavenly laceration. Maradeva wanted to slaughter them all. It meant that the Fortune Shrine couldn't stand them anymore. The fire shrine had been chasing their disciple for such a long time. The Fortune Shrine was furious. "The fire shrine will not let the matter drop," said the high-level saint coldly. "I don't intend to leave the matter at this, either. Today, if we don't solve the issue in Tianyan City, the Fortune Shrine will start a war against the fire shrine. Are you ready for that?" said Maradeva indifferently. The strong cultivator of the fire shrine was astonished. The issue in Tianyan City? They didn't know what was going on in Tianyan City because they had left for the godly grave a while before. But apparently, the fire shrine had really offended the Fortune Shrine this time. Surprisingly, they were ready to start a war. When people heard about a war between the two shrines, they were stunned, and their hearts started pounding. If the fire shrine started a war against the Fortune Shrine, would they win? For both shrines, it would be a tragedy. "Tian Ruojian, how did we offend you? And who was that young man a moment ago?" asked the strong cultivator of the fire shrine looking at Tian Ruojian. "We can't stand you," said Tian Ruojian indifferently. He didn't say anything else. The strong cultivator of the fire shrine pulled a long face. On the other side, Lin Feng had entered the godly grave. A terrifying fire chi surrounded him. The fire grave was scorching hot there. However, Lin Feng wasn't interested in the place. He had just followed Xiongyu. He released his godly awareness and inspected the area. Very quickly, he sensed a powerful chi in the distance and flew in that direction. He was surrounded by empty space and wind strength to move faster. It was almost like he was teleporting himself. "Qiongyu, fight!" he shouted out. Qiongyu sensed that Lin Feng was chasing him and that he was alone. Lin Feng's qi wasn't very powerful, he seemed weak. However, his saint's weapon was ancient and strange, terrifyingly powerful, and his strength was also strange. Qiongyu didn't stop, continuing to fly forwards. Even if he was going to fight against Lin Feng, he didn't want to fight next to the entrance. He wanted to get further in, otherwise, if Maradeva and Tian Ruojian entered, he'd be in danger, he couldn't compete with them. Besides, he didn't understand why Maradeva and Tian Ruojian wanted to capture him. Fortune Shrine. Qionyu's eyes twinkled. The qi in this place was terrifying and desolate. They both continued moving, Lin Feng slowly catching up. At that moment in Tianyan City, the members of the Fire Shrine and the Fortune Shrine were still silent. However, at that moment, on the Fire Shrine side, someone suddenly released an ice-cold qi. Suddenly, he looked at the diviner coldly. "Maradeva, you killed people from our shrine with your real body?" shouted that strong cultivator, breaking the silence. The crowd was stupefied, especially the members of the Fire Shrine. Maradeva's real body? Some old people knew that Maradeva had been practicing in seclusion with his real body. Was he out again? The diviner looked back at him calmly. "You're chasing Qiongyu to kill him?" That person's qi was becoming colder and colder. "Back in the days, during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, you attacked my disciple. After that, you continued chasing him. Do you think the Fortune Shrine would let you do that forever patiently?" "You're ridiculous," said the diviner indifferently. "Release him now and we'll leave, and of course, we'll stop chasing Qiongyu." "Release him? Make him come here," said that cultivator coldly. "It seems that there's no space for negotiation," said the diviner indifferently. Everybody remained silent again. However, the members of the Fire Shrine felt pressured now. The Fortune Shrine was starting to kill their people. They were chasing Qiongyu, trying to threaten them by using Qiongyu as a hostage. The only thing they could do was wait and see if Qiongyu could escape. "Maradeva, if anything happens to Qiongyu, you'll pay the price for it," said the strong cultivator of the Fire Shrine coldly. The diviner looked back at him coldly and said, "You think we're desperate and taking huge risks? We've already started killing your people. If anything happens to Zhetian, the Fortune Shrine will start a real war against the Fire Shrine." When Maradeva said that, everybody remained silent. There were people from other shrines there, smiling coldly on the inside. If the Fire Shrine and the Fortune Shrine started a war, nobody would help them, the other shrines would be happy. The best thing would be if Lin Feng died too. Chapter 2378, Great Battle Against Qiongyu. In the desolate, gloomy, and scorching hot cave, the two figures kept flickering. After a very long time, Qiongyu decided that they were far enough from the entrance and stopped. He turned around and looked at Lin Feng coldly as his fire spear appeared in his hand. Very quickly, Lin Feng landed in front of him, holding his god sword. "Before fighting, could you please tell me who you are?" Qiongyu asked. He didn't underestimate or despise Lin Feng. He had seen how terrifying his sword attacks were. Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't hide his real identity. It wasn't necessary anymore. The diviner had even started killing people from the Fire Shrine and threatened to start a war. Either the Fortune Shrine or the Fire Shrine would collapse. Lin Feng, who ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Qiongyu was surprised. He wasn't surprised to learn that the person in front of him was Lin Feng. He was surprised to see how strong he had become. Qiongyu didn't know much about Lin Feng. Not all the members of the shrines knew everything about Lin Feng. Qiongyu had only heard that amongst the top 10 cultivators of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, one of them might have a forbidden body and therefore the shrines wanted to kill him. However, Qiongyu didn't really believe in the legends related to the forbidden people. Could a forbidden person really trigger a shrine's dusk war? The shrines had already reached a certain level of strength. How come they hadn't managed to destroy someone who had a forbidden body? But now Qiongyu was facing Lin Feng and felt some admiration for him. Not such a long time had passed since the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Back then Lin Feng was only a cultivator of the top of the Huangqi layer, and now he had become a saint. How impressive! Qiong Yu's qi was becoming more and more intense. He said coldly, "The godly grave will become your grave. You should feel honored." A light beam emerged from Qiong Yu's hand, a drop of blood appeared and turned into a dazzling fire armor, fusing with Qiong Yu's skin. Lin Feng was extremely strong, and Qiong Yu preferred being cautious. Lin Feng had a terrifying saint's weapon, so with this armor, Qiong Yu felt completely safe. "I see. You're really important in the fire shrine," said Lin Feng to Qiong Yu. He wasn't surprised that Qiong Yu had several saint's weapons. The fire spear was for attacks and the armor was for defense, a complete set. Qiong Yu moved towards Lin Feng. This time, he looked much more solemn and serious. Each time he took a step, celestial Tao flew up and he condensed it. He was going to use a saint's technique. Lin Feng looked unruffled. His robe was fluttering in the fiery wind. He didn't take Qiong Yu into his own world immediately. Qiong Yu couldn't escape anymore anyway, so why not have a real fight against him? Lin Feng wanted to try using his god sword. Qiong Yu lifted his spear and condensed even more celestial Tao. Around him, several vortexes appeared and turned into spears. "Die!" shouted Qiong Yu explosively. An endless number of black spears moved towards Lin Feng instantly, turning into fire tornadoes. Lin Feng took a step forwards and released God Strength. Lin Feng's sword thrust forwards and released absorbing strength which turned into a vortex. It absorbed the spears one after another. Lin Feng's sword was like a black hole absorbing everything in its way. The sword had turned into a black hole which sucked in the spears. Lin Feng was trying out the absorbing strength of his sword. The spear Qiong Yu was holding shook with his fury, and he shouted out. 3,000 spears appeared and condensed into a single gigantic spear. It shot straight towards the black hole. Small fire dragons appeared and danced around the spear as they roared out. The black hole started trembling. Lin Feng took a few steps backwards as he cast a deployment spell. The atmosphere became golden. Empty space strength started intertwining. Lin Feng could cast deployment spells instantly with the power of his mind. He also condensed God's strength into his deployment spells. "Umph." Qiong Yu grunted coldly. He stabbed his spear into the ground, and the deployment spell on the ground started cracking. He didn't want to give Lin Feng time to cast a deployment spell. However, the deployment spell reappeared instantly. He wasn't as fast as Lin Feng. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards, an illusion appeared, and everything became dark around his opponent. However, in the darkness, there was a deadly sword shooting towards him. He started to get a bit worried. "Burn!" shouted Qiong Yu. Flames of fury appeared in his eyes. Lin Feng's sword penetrated into the ocean of flames, piercing through and reappearing on the other side. Lin Feng frowned. It was as if his sword had pierced through nothing, through emptiness. "It can't be!" Suddenly he felt danger. He saw a pair of eyes filled with flames and closed his eyes. His eyes had just started burning painfully. Qiong Yu also reappeared, lights dispersing around him. He was having a hard time too. His armor had shattered, forcing him to use an illusion to become immaterial and his eyes to release fire to protect himself. "Destroy," said Qiong Yu, pointing at Lin Feng. A terrifying saint's strength condensed and shot towards Lin Feng's third eye. Lin Feng countered with a terrifying death strength. They weren't that close to one another, but Lin Feng could sense how scary those energies were. At that moment, Lin Feng had the impression he could die instantly. However, he closed his eyes and remained completely calm. His sword was shooting forwards and he could not recall it, and he couldn't dodge either. He could only use one kind of strength to dodge. Great empty space technique. Lin Feng started entering an empty space. At the same time, he released qi towards Qiong Yu's head. The invisible and intangible qi penetrated into Qiong Yu's skull. At that moment, the only thing Qiong Yu wanted to do was kill Lin Feng. "It's over," he said, pointing at Lin Feng. He charged forwards and smiled coldly, as if he had found something. He had to kill this guy. Qiong Yu frowned. He realized there was something wrong. Sword intent? How is that possible? Qiongyu was astonished. Impossible! However, Qiongyu retreated as quickly as he could, but it was too late. Lin Feng's hand suddenly moved towards his head, and he had no time to stop him. No! The destructive hand was becoming bigger and bigger in his field of vision. It was impossible, but the hand still reached him. His soul shook violently, and his body went numb. A terrifying strength hit him with the force of a landslide and the power of a tidal wave. Happily, Lin Feng didn't want to kill him, he wanted to make him unable to fight. Qiongyu sensed his internal organs explode and coughed blood. Finally, he couldn't hold on anymore and collapsed. Was it an illusion? Whispered Qiongyu, as if he had realized something. Lin Feng looked at Qiongyu. How dangerous! A moment before, he had created a dream using illusion strength which corresponded to what Qiongyu wanted to see. However, Qiongyu wanted to kill him so badly, so it was difficult to resist. Lin Feng looked at his chest. There was blood, but it was worth it. Capturing Qiongyu was the most important thing in the world, for his son, Zhetian. But now, Lin Feng looked around and remembered that he was in the godly grave, one of the 7 forbidden territories. Chapter 2379, Forbidden Territory, Godly Grave in Tianyan City. When Lin Feng captured Qiongyu, his clone whispered to the diviner, "I have captured Qiongyu." "Good," said the diviner. He was happy. His real body was in blood great imperial city slaughtering people. It was all worth it. He had helped Lin Feng seize an opportunity to capture Qiongyu. That way, the fire shrine wouldn't act so recklessly and Zhetian would be safe. "I captured Qiongyu, will you release him now?" asked the diviner to the members of the fire shrine. The members of the fire shrine were stunned. They took out jade talismans and called Qiongyu quickly. As expected, he wasn't reachable. Their expressions changed drastically. "Fortune Shrine, how sly." "We're not as shameless as you, at least," the diviner replied pitilessly. "Well, you captured Qiongyu in the grave. How do we exchange people now?" "Release him for me for now," said Lin Feng indifferently. He walked forwards and said to the members of the fire shrine, "I captured Qiongyu. He's with my real body. You release Zhetian, I stay here. That way, you can keep things under control." "What if you give up your real body?" asked a strong cultivator of the fire shrine coldly, sounding skeptical. Lin Feng released Qi into the air and then raised his fist, punching out. He said, "My clones are extremely powerful too. You think I'd give up one of my powerful clones just to kill Qiongyu? I don't care about him at all." The members of the fire shrine frowned, trying to see if Lin Feng was telling the truth or not. Lin Feng said, "No need to think of a solution. If you act recklessly again, I won't trust you anymore. I'll give up my son and I'll kill Qiongyu." The members of the fire shrine looked pensive. Was giving up a clone worth saving Zhetian? "All right, let's do the exchange," said a saint of the fire shrine at that moment. Lin Feng looked at him and said, "All right, I'm coming, release Zhetian." Lin Feng's clone walked towards the saint of the fire shrine. As long as his clone was there, the fire shrine would wait because his real body had Qiongyu. The fire shrine released Zhetian. Zhetian slowly walked forwards. When they passed next to each other, Zhetian said to Lin Feng telepathically, "Father, let's escape together." "We're in Tianyan City," replied Lin Feng. "Don't worry. It's only a clone. They won't do anything to me. You go back, go and see your mother." Zhetian's eyes were red, but he nodded and said, "Father, I will definitely become extremely strong." "Go," said Lin Feng calmly. He slapped Zhetian's shoulder. The fire shrine didn't do anything dodgy. When Zhetian went back, the diviner said, "We're off." Their figures flickered. The saints of the fire shrine glanced after them coldly. The diviner sensed a terrifying qi surrounding him. A few people appeared in front of him in the sky, staring at him coldly. Something appeared in the diviner's hand, dazzling lights surrounded them and the vault of heaven absorbed them. They turned into illusions and disappeared, leaving Tianyan City. They had gotten prepared. After the diviner and the others left, the cultivator of the fire shrine said, as expected, he prepared a teleportation scepter. "Get ready to fight." "The fortune shrine doesn't fear a war, the fire shrine doesn't either," said an old man indifferently. Then they disappeared. That simple sentence could determine the fate of an entire generation. Lin Feng didn't control the situation. His strength was limited. There were many things he couldn't control. He knew that when he had entered the godly grave already. He didn't even know how to get out of the godly grave. Lin Feng's figure flickered. The landscapes were desolate because everything was burning there. Anything that could survive in there was a precious treasure. "There's someone." At that moment, Lin Feng saw a figure. The man was lying on the ground, injured. Lin Feng flashed forwards and landed next to the man. He was a saint emperor at the top of the Xingdi layer. In the outside world, apart from saints, such cultivators were already strong. Most of the time, only saints had the opportunity to meet other saints. Saints were too mysterious. A powerful life strength penetrated into the man's body as Lin Feng helped him recover. The person said, "Thank you very much, Master." "How long have you been in the godly grave?" asked Lin Feng. "How long?" That person looked confused. He was struggling to remember. "I forgot, hundreds of years, I guess," the man said sorrowfully. Back then, he was powerful and influential in the outside world, and now he had been stuck in there for hundreds of years. What had he gone through in there? "What is there in the godly grave?" asked Lin Feng. That person looked pensive. In the past, he used to think there were opportunities. He had thought he'd find historical remains. Then he had realized people were fighting everywhere inside. In the past, he thought there weren't many saints, and only then he had realized he didn't know much about the world. He was at the top of the Xingdi layer and kept being humiliated in there. He could do nothing but drift and live without purpose. Nobody respected him. He looked at Lin Feng. He looked desperate and replied, "Battles?" "Battles?" asked Lin Feng, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I don't know either. People just wander around and fight. There are 9 exits. All of them correspond to 9 ancient spiritual beings. There are battlefields and historical remains. The godly grave is a place to fight. And regarding the historical remains, I've never found any, and I've never heard of any." He lowered his head and finished hoarsely, "I want to leave this evil place." "Why haven't I seen anyone?" asked Lin Feng. "And what is this? The word, fire, is written on your third eye." The word was written on the man's forehead, dimly discernible and containing a particular chi. "Continue straight ahead, there's a battlefield. You'll understand." The word fire is the spiritual being's signature. Anyone who goes there get his third eye signed. "It proves you are one of the fire god's people," explained the man. Lin Feng frowned. "Signature? And what did he mean with battlefields? What kind of place was the godly grave?" Lin Feng had been to the supreme ancient pit of hell. It was an elaborate place with palaces, demon kings, demons, etc. Was the godly grave really only a grave for spiritual beings or gods? Lin Feng guessed that the forbidden territories all had mysteries. To the people who controlled those places, they probably weren't mysterious, however. Lin Feng understood that in this world, when reaching a certain level, there were no problems anymore. The forbidden territories weren't mysteries in the eyes of such people. "Bring me there," said Lin Feng. The man shook his head quickly. "Master, I don't want to go back there." "I'll protect you," said Lin Feng. That cultivator forced himself to nod with a sigh. "All right." Straight away the whole time. Lin Feng took the man and flew in that direction. Chapter 2380. Have the gods really vanished? Lin Feng took the Saint Emperor forwards. They quickly arrived at the top of a mountain and stopped. Lin Feng gazed into the distance. There was a gigantic valley below, in which there was indeed a battlefield. Smoke kept rising up in the air, and there were caves and fortresses everywhere, with tents scattered between. Many people were sitting around looking confused. There was an invisible and intangible chi around them which indicated they had been fighting for a very long time. In the sky was a gigantic curtain of fire. Lin Feng was still far from all this, but he could sense an enormous amount of strength. That strength wanted to pierce through his third eye, leaving him no choice. How come there are so many Saint Emperors? Asked Lin Feng. Those people all seem to be Saint Emperors. They're like me. After they came in, they weren't able to leave. Even though I've been here for a long time, many people have been here for much, much longer than me. Some of them have been here for 10,000 or even 100,000 years. The most incredible thing I've seen here was 7 generations of people who met in here. They were from the same clan and surprisingly they all met in here. You know, at our level, if we don't get killed, we almost never die, the man replied. It reminded him of the supreme ancient pit of hell, generations of people entering the forbidden territories and getting stuck inside. Since it's a battlefield, it must be to death, right? Why are there so many people? Asked Lin Feng. The fire word in people's third eyes is a gift offered by the spiritual being to protect people before dying. Even if their body is destroyed, they can use body capture to come back to life. Saints have incredible healing abilities. I have personally died twice. Once I was saved and brought back to life, and once I stole a body using body capture. That person looked sad and devastated. He had no way to live. He had become a puppet, only death could save him. According to legends, there are spiritual beings' historical remains in the godly grave, but there's only a battlefield here? How come? What is the purpose? Lin Feng didn't understand. Everything is a lie in the continent of the 9 clouds, said the man firmly. I've heard many things I would have never dared believe in the past. For example, people who manage to leave usually find historical remains, and the spiritual beings allow them to leave. Many people who come here are strong fighters, and they can make the spiritual beings disappear, but do spiritual beings really disappear? The spiritual beings who made the shrines, are they alive or not? Are there only peerless saints who controlled shrines? You think that the spiritual beings still exist? Asked Lin Feng. I also used to think that the spiritual beings, or gods if you wish, had disappeared. But since I've been here, I'm sure that the 9 gods still exist. Otherwise the existence of the godly grave wouldn't be justified. Those people or deities despise us. They use us like chess pieces. They look down at us from the sky. The godly grave is a forbidden territory for us. For them, it's a game. He looked terrified, desperate, panic-stricken, and terrifyingly sad. He put his hands on his head and shouted furiously, "No, no, what's going on?" asked Lin Feng frowning. His informer went into a frenzy, writhing in pain. The word in his third eye. Lin Feng was astonished. The word in his third eye started burning, then it grew large enough to surround his body. "No!" the cultivator screamed, and began to burn. Lin Feng pulled a long face and moved forwards. Ice surrounded the man, but it was useless. He burned down to ash and finally, only the gigantic word, fire, was left behind. He's dead. Lin Feng was grim. They were chatting about the gods, and suddenly that person had begun to burn. How mysterious. Lin Feng raised his head and looked up at the sky. Did gods really exist? According to legends, there had been a great war in the ancient times, and the gods had vanished. Was it all a lie? Was everything about the godly grave a lie, too? Lin Feng looked at the ashes and bowed. If I hadn't taken you back, you wouldn't have died. I just didn't know. Lin Feng turned around and gazed into the distance. Someone came out of a fortress. He had big eyes, but looked remarkably dignified. He sensed something and looked back at Lin Feng. However, he didn't look surprised. It was just another person who had come to the godly grave. It was normal. Many people came here. Since you're here, come down. There is no exit, said that person. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. He had no option, he jumped forwards. Lin Feng walked slowly through the valley. However, when he landed on the ground, an invisible and intangible strength crashed onto his third eye. The word, fire, appeared there, just like the one on the man who had just died. Is it really a god's signature? Murmured Lin Feng. If there was no god, what was the explanation? No wonder the man had suspected they were still gods after having spent such a long time here. Lin Feng walked past a middle-aged man. The man looked at Lin Feng and said, "From now on, obey me. If you disobey, you'll die." That middle-aged man was a low-level saint. Lin Feng's cultivation level was always blurry in other people's eyes. He looked ordinary. "What do I need to do?" asked Lin Feng. He didn't show how strong he was. He needed to understand what kind of place the godly grave was, and he needed to get pieces of information from other people. "Nothing. Just stay with them. If there's anything to do, I'll tell you," said the middle-aged man indifferently. In the distance was an army of cultivators. Lin Feng nodded and walked over to them. Those people looked at Lin Feng apathetically, totally expressionless. Another unlucky person, a woman, sighed. Lin Feng turned around and looked at her. She was wearing black clothes. She didn't look beautiful, she looked just normal, clean, and simple. Lin Feng smiled and sat down next to her. She was a bit surprised, but she smiled and said, "Where are you from?" "Northwest area," said Lin Feng, smiling. "Northwest area? You're from the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds then. It's not far from the fire shrine. No wonder you came through the fire door," said the woman, smiling. She stretched her hand and said, "Lin E." "Lin." Lin Feng's heart twitched, but he shook her hand and smiled, "Mu Feng. By the way, Lin E, you said I'm from the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, but are there people here from other places, then?" asked Lin Feng. He was curious. "I don't know. I've only been here for a dozen years. I've talked to some people, but some of them are from places I've never heard of, and I don't know whether they were from the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds or not." "You've been here for a short time too then. What's going on with the battles? Who are we fighting?" "What?" asked Lin Feng. There had to be a reason to fight. The one who had died had told Lin Feng the gods were just playing a game. "For merit and to open the gods' historical remains, but we are just cannon fodder," said Lin E, smiled sadly. People around looked at her, all looking devastated. What a tragedy to be there. Chapter 2381. Invasion Merit? Open the historical remains? Lin Feng didn't understand what Lin E meant. Were there really historical remains there? Did they even need to open them? What merit? And has anyone ever seen the historical remains? Asked Lin Feng to Lin. When we enter the godly grave, depending on the entrance you use to enter, a different word is put into your third eye. When you enter through the fire entrance, the word fire appears in your third eye, which means we represent the fire spiritual being, or fire god. When people enter through the other entrances, the same happens to them. A word appears in their third eye and indicates which spiritual being they represent. When we kill people from other armies, we steal other spiritual beings' achievements, like points. Regarding the historical remains, I've heard some old people say that we'll never see them personally. Lin E smiled sadly. She had already resigned herself. There was nothing else to do anyway. Cultivators of the Di-Chi layer are under the orders of the saints. Since we are not as strong as saints, we are just cannon fodder on the battlefield. When saints are killed, the killers they get more points, it seems. Of course, only saints who have been in here for a long time know what things are actually like. All right. Lin Feng nodded. They needed military merits, or points, to open the historical remains, it seemed. Lin Feng now wondered, who benefited from the victories? Only the one in charge of the specific grave? Or the whole army too? Killing other people is getting more and more difficult, because everybody knows how to protect their points. They don't let their people die. Each time armies start fighting, some people are in charge of the corpses, and don't let you steal points, continued Lin. They heard some steps behind them. Lin Feng and Lin E turned around. A woman had arrived. She looked heroic and valiant, graceful, elegant, and charming, truly noble. She glanced over the crowd and especially at Lin Feng and Lin. "What's your name?" the woman asked Lin Feng. "She's the Blood Saint's daughter. She's in charge of us most of the time. She has an explosive temper. Don't infuriate her," Lin E warned Lin Feng. "Mu Feng," replied Lin Feng. "You, stand up," said the woman aggressively, pointing at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was surprised. He wasn't used to people talking to him that way, but he wasn't like in the past. He didn't have such a bad temper anymore, He was like pale clouds and a gentle breeze. He didn't want to confront her directly right now. At least, he first wanted to understand what was going on in the godly grave and how to leave. He also wanted to understand what the point of the battles between the 9 spiritual beings was. Were the gods really playing a game? "Take out your jade talisman," said the woman said to Lin Feng. He took it out and they exchanged their contact details. "Lin Yi, go and show him around so that he gets familiar with the area," said the woman, before turning around and leaving. Lin Yi and some other people stood up and said to Lin Feng, "Let's go then. We'll go and scout." "Scout for what?" asked Lin Feng. "It's a war. We need to scout and gather intelligence. Otherwise, the enemies will kill us easily without us even knowing how. It's very dangerous here," said Lin. The group of people headed out. "Mu Feng, let me give you a map of the area. We're on the edge of the fire grave here," said Lin Yi, transmitting a map to Lin Feng using her godly awareness. "How desolate. Are there really historical remains here?" said Lin Feng. He had the feeling there was nothing here. If there are no historical remains, why would there be so many people, including saints? Interjected someone. They were 4 people, 2 men in addition to Lin Feng and Lin. They looked cold, their eyes empty and hopeless. "In front of us is an area where people often hide, but our enemies usually don't hide that far," said Lin. They all released their godly awareness and inspected the mountain range. "There's nobody," whispered Lin Yi, "but even if we can't see anyone with our godly awareness, we have to be careful. Many people have incredible hiding abilities. However, the probability of seeing an enemy here is not high." Lin Feng frowned because he could sense life with his godly awareness. As expected, Lin Yi was right. Some people are hiding here. I can only sense some dimly discernible life energy. Lin Yi can't sense anything. It's not unusual, thought Lin Feng. Lin Yi was a bit careless because she was too close to their base, convinced there was no enemy this far out. Very quickly, they crossed the area, but Lin Feng didn't say anything about what he had sensed. He wanted to cross the area and see if those people who were hiding would come out at some point. How fast? At that moment, Lin Feng was startled, as the thread of life energy he had sensed moved extremely fast, and nobody had noticed it. If he hadn't been staring at it the whole time, he wouldn't have noticed it either. Lin Feng ignored the enemy and continued moving forwards. After a short time, they arrived in a vast area, and Lin Feng sensed some people's qi. "I think something is going to happen," thought Lin Feng. As expected, when Lin Feng arrived at the beginning of a valley, he said to Lin Yi, "That's enough for today, isn't it? Let's go back." Lin Yi was surprised. "Go back? How could things be so easy? We're scouting. There are enemies on our territory. How could we go back?" said Lin Yi. "If we don't go back, we might never go back," thought Lin Feng. He whispered, "There is a great danger awaiting us here. Let's go back." Lin Feng turned around and started retreating. The 2 men frowned. Lin Yi was surprised, but she decided to trust Lin Feng and followed him. At the same time, she said telepathically, "Did anything happen?" "I sensed lots of life qi," said Lin Feng. "Impossible," Lin Yi's face stiffened. "We're good at scouting, especially when it comes to sensing strength, and we sensed nothing at all." "They use saints' weapons to hide their qi," replied Lin Feng. Lin Yi's face stiffened. "If that's the case, we need to go back and report it to the superiors. We need to leave if the situation is dangerous." "Invaders?" asked Lin Feng. "Enemies don't come here to scout. If they're really here, it's to invade us. We need to hurry up and head back." Lin Yi accelerated. The enemies remained discreet, but Lin Feng noticed that they had changed their positions. They had gotten closer to the palace. "How many people do we have? How many saints?" asked Lin Feng. "There are 3 saints, the strongest one is the blood saint," replied Lin. "Since we have saints, why don't the saints of the other side attack directly? Why do they need to use armies?" "It seems troublesome," said Lin Feng. He didn't understand. The saints could destroy all the saint emperors as they wished. Saints don't care about saint emperors, especially since there are so many of them. "Killing saints to get points is too difficult," replied Lin. "If it were me, I wouldn't kill them," said Lin Feng, smiling indifferently. When they arrived back to the palace, the Blood Saint's daughter was surprised. She asked, "How come you're back already?" Mu Feng said he sensed lots of life qi which was getting closer and closer to our palace, said one of the two men. Lin Feng frowned. They had made him bear the responsibility. No matter what happened, nobody would blame them. "And you didn't sense anything?" asked the woman. "No," said the two, shaking their heads. "What about you, Linny?" asked the woman. Lin Yi's face stiffened. "I didn't either, but I believe Mu Feng. You have acute perceptions and you haven't sensed anything. He has just arrived and you believe him?" said the woman coldly. She looked at Lin Feng. A fire whip appeared and lashed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng released qi, but Lin Yi said to him telepathically, "Don't try to resist." Lin Feng stopped, and the whip crashed onto his body. His clothes were torn apart instantly, but he didn't move at all. He just glanced at her coldly. If Lin Yi hadn't told him anything, he would have killed her. "I'll forgive you this time. If you do something like that again, I'll kill you," said the woman coldly, staring at Lin Feng. "You're right, I'll forgive you this time too," thought Lin Feng. She would see after the enemy arrived and understand. Then, Lin Feng would settle accounts with her regarding those whiplashes. Of course, those whiplashes didn't injure Lin Feng at all. Otherwise, he would have already done something. What do the battles look like here? Lin Feng gazing into the distance. They were soon going to fight. Chapter 2382. You Want to Die. The Blood Saint's daughter left, looking angry. After she left, Lin Feng said to Lin, "Leave with me." Lin Yi was startled. In the godly grave, saint emperors who didn't stay with a saint usually died in tragic conditions. Only some terrifyingly saints dared travel alone in here. They killed as many people as they could and got points alone. According to legends, those who managed to do that had opportunities to leave. According to legends, the spiritual beings were the gods of this world. They remained at the top of the world forever. They were the ones who had created the world, the continent of the 9 clouds, the shrines, everything. There were many legends about gods. Everybody wanted to see the gods and their historical remains. "Mu Feng, you're new here, you don't know much, but traveling alone in the godly grave is too dangerous," replied Lin. "Trust me," said Lin Feng, smiling at Lin. When she saw his smile, she was astonished. This guy was so mysterious. She suddenly remembered that Lin Feng had sensed the presence of enemies. But how? "You really want to leave?" asked Lin. "We'll leave when we're done here. I need to do some things here. But first, let's get away from the crowd," said Lin Feng. She looked at him and nodded. "All right. So many years have passed and I couldn't break through in here. Maybe I have a problem. Maybe my life is just useless here. I can gamble this time. Mu Feng, I'll stay with you." "Let's go," said Lin Feng. Their figures flickered. Even though they were under the Blood Saint's orders, nobody prevented them from moving around. Very quickly, they arrived at the top of a mountain and gazed into the distance. They didn't hurry to leave. Lin Feng said, "Those people will arrive soon." Lin Yi looked at Lin Feng. He looked completely composed, and even when the Blood Saint's daughter flogged him, he looked unruffled, as if he didn't care. He didn't take her seriously. Maybe I was wrong? Thought Lin Yi suddenly. She couldn't see Lin Feng's cultivation level. It seemed like he was at the same cultivation level as her, but at the same time, she couldn't be sure. Could it be? Lin Yi's mouth twitched. Could it be that Mu Feng was a saint? Time passed, the air was calm. However, Lin Feng sensed that something strange was happening. His eyes glittered. He said, "They're here." Lin Yi gazed into the distance. Were they there? Far away, a few people flew up. The Blood Saint's eyes shone. 2 other saints appeared next to him. "Who are you?" shouted the Blood Saint coldly. His voice spread far away, and was as explosive as thunder. However, a million li away, a curtain of light appeared. The atmosphere was sealed. Some people are invading us? At that moment, everybody understood. When people invaded someone else's area, they sealed it first. Otherwise, other forces would come and try to steal their points while they were busy fighting. Suddenly, a terrifying chi filled the air. People flew up. It was a terrifying army. The members of the fire grave realized that only when they got closer. They're using Saint's weapons to hide their chi, swore the Blood Saint. He shouted coldly. You didn't go and scout? Shouted the Blood Saint furiously. His daughter pulled a long face. She looked at her army, looking for Lin Feng. He had been right. How is that possible? She couldn't find him, and she couldn't see Lin either. She didn't have time to think though. A terrifying strength suddenly covered the whole area. Everybody protect your own self. We're encircled, said the Blood Saint when he sensed the immense chi. They had no choice but protect themselves this time. The enemies had a good strategy and wanted to kill them. People were panic-stricken. The Blood Saint had told the crowd to protect themselves, which meant they weren't strong enough. Father, said the Blood Saint's daughter, she pulled a long face. If they were encircled, it meant they were doomed. The only way to escape is to break the seal, said the Blood Saint to his daughter, as a terrifying strength surrounded her. Father. The Blood Saint's daughter was shocked. She saw a terrifying oppressive strength surround the Blood Saint. A saint slowly arrived. She knew that the Blood Saint was protecting her, but she couldn't stay next to him. Mu Feng, said Lin. She was astonished. Their enemies had really come, like Lin Feng had said. Lin Feng looked at Lin inquiringly. She said, the area is sealed. We're stuck here. The sealed area is gigantic. Let's go and see. She looked at him, turned around, and saw the battle had already started. Very quickly, the members of the fire grave started getting slaughtered. They couldn't win and didn't stand a chance, since the Blood Saint had given up directly. Without planning and without a strategy, the battle could only end up tragically, said Lin Yi when she saw the saints of the fire grave getting slaughtered. It was the first time she had seen such a terrifying massacre. She had seen many battles, she had seen many people die, and many enemies steal points, but today, the fire grave's members were just getting slaughtered. When cultivators died, the enemies took the fire signatures the members of the fire grave had in their third eyes. Those were the points. How macabre. They look like bloodthirsty demons, thought Lin Feng, glancing at the action. The members of the fire grave were running in all directions. Some people ran towards Lin Feng and Lin. Those people just glanced at them but didn't stop. They continued running away. They had to protect themselves first. However, when they arrived at the edge of the territory, they couldn't break the seal. The Blood Saint's daughter also escaped. When she saw Lin Feng and Lin Yi, she said coldly, Bastard, you knew that the enemies were invading our territory, why didn't you insist? Lin Yi was amused. The woman had refused to believe him, and now she was releasing her anger on him. The Blood Saint's daughter released a terrifying chi and took out her whip again. It turned into a fire snake and lashed out at a terrifying speed. Be careful, said Lin. However, at that moment, the Blood Saint's daughter was astonished. Lin Feng had grabbed the whip, and it instantly stopped moving. You, the Blood Saint's daughter pulled a long face. Lin Feng used a little bit of strength to pull it out of her hand. Then he flogged her violently. Her clothes were instantly torn apart. Lin Feng was expressionless. He flogged her again. The lash of the whip surrounded her neck and he dragged her towards him, looking at her in an icily disdainful way without saying anything. She felt so humiliated her face had turned deathly pale. How come he's so strong? Thought the Blood Saint's daughter. Even though she felt humiliated, she could sense he was terrifyingly strong. Lin Feng didn't need to make the slightest exertion against her, a mere saint emperor. She couldn't do anything against him. Insolent! Shouted someone furiously at that moment. When the Blood Saint saw that Lin Feng had captured his daughter, he released a powerful chi towards him. But his opponent also attacked him at that moment, so he didn't have time to react. Go and kill him, shouted the Blood Saint to his two partners. One of them left the battle, flying towards Lin Feng. He was a half-saint. He looked angry and released a formidable energy. You really want to die, shouted that person furiously. He released Celestial Dao. Lin Feng sensed an explosive fire Celestial Dao surround him. It wasn't pleasant. The man punched out in Lin Feng's direction. No! Lin pulled a long face. Saints were too terrifying. She looked at Lin Feng. He was still standing there, and when the saint's fist bombarded his body, he didn't move, as if he had been waiting to die. The powerful fist smashed into Lin Feng. The blood saint's daughter smiled coldly. How reckless! Lin Yi, you also want to die. However, at that moment, the saint's expression changed. The atmosphere around him distorted, and he couldn't control the strength around his fist. Lin Feng pointed at him, and a sharp sword emerged from his finger. With his god strength, he was an expert in close combat. Blood appeared on that cultivator's head. His eyes were wide open, he couldn't believe his eyes. The blood saint's daughter was astonished too. Finally, she looked truly frightened. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.